Good evening. We're going to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Mrs. O'Neill, second. Dr. Francis. Thank you. Any discussion on the meeting agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the meeting agenda, please raise your hand. Passes 8-0. Thank you very much. All right, so the first order of business tonight is some student recognition. So I'll move on with it. Okay, so this is the recognition portion of our program. Thank you for coming early. This is the first time we've done it a little bit early. We've got our budget discussion tonight. I don't expect any of you are going to stick around for that. Feel free. That's how I pay for the show. But I would ask that you actually stay until all of the recognitions are over so that you can actually honor all of your classmates. That would be nice. And we'll let you know when that time comes. So first up, we've got the girls swimming and diving state championship team. Ms. Kyle.
Okay, I'd like to begin by thanking the members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Mayo for recognizing our team's success this fall. It is my pleasure to introduce the 2018 girls swimming and diving team, who for the second consecutive season maintained an undefeated season record and won all 3 championship titles. Thank you. Having the very best diving team in the state certainly helped propel us forward throughout the season, and especially in the Open Championship, where the Greenwich High School divers outscored the competition by over 50 points. These 50 points put us in a position to compete for a state open title for the 4th consecutive season. Going into the final final relay race of the state open championship, the meet was a virtual tie between Greenwich and Cheshire. Having the result of a game or meet come down to a final shot, walk-off home run, or final relay is the ultimate test of a team or competitor. And watching our team rise to the occasion and win that relay by more than a second to clinch the title for the 4th straight year was one of the proudest and most exciting moments of my coaching career. And I'm sure a moment that the team will take forward for years to come. The success of this team has had in the last 5 seasons is more than I could have imagined, and this marks the 21st State Open Championship for Greenwich High School and the 4th straight title in 5 years. I am fortunate to call myself the head coach of such a hard-working, dedicated, and focused group of girls who consistently represent the very best of Greenwich High School. So without further ado, let me present the 2018 girls swimming and diving team. I'm going to start in grade order. So freshman breaststroker Olivia Bain. Freshman breaststroker and IMer Katarina Lee. Freshman distance swimmer and backstroker, Isabella Malco. Freshman sprinter, Daniela Pampa. Several people couldn't be here tonight. It's the Greenwich Town meet, so it's several Greenwich teams swimming together. But Emma Robinson, another freshman sprinter, couldn't be here with us. Lexi De La Sierra, Sammy Ennis, Julia Lucy, sophomore Megan Lynch, Megan set 3 new school records this season, 3 new state records this season. She is All-State and All-American in 3 events. And a couple of weeks ago, she competed at U.S. Nationals and qualified for the 2020 U.S. Olympic Trials. Hannah Seward, a sophomore butterflyer. June Akpata, a sophomore sprinter. Reggie Frias, a junior diver. Jenna Handali, a junior sprinter. Casey Kirsch, a junior diver. Marcella Winget, a junior sprinter. Allison, and finally we have our 3 captains. Allison Bria, who's the FCX Scholar Athlete. Courtney Newton, a senior distance specialist. And Emily Warner, a senior sprinter. 2 All-State divers also compete here tonight, Maddie Muldoon and Annabelle Pollock. One more round of applause. This is a great team. Thank you very much for recognizing us tonight.
Thank you. 4 years in a row, huh? What's going to happen next year? I don't know. All right, we'll see you again. All right, Innovation Lab. The next up is the Innovation Lab National History Day National Competition. Ms. Foster.
Many thanks to the Superintendent and the Board of Education for the opportunity to honor our students. National History Day is an academic program focused on historical research, interpretation, and creative expression. By participating in NHD, students become writers, filmmakers, web designers, playwrights, and artists as they create unique contemporary expressions of history. NHD students become better writers who write with purpose and voice and marshal solid evidence to support their points of view. After winning first or second place at the regional competition, they competed at the Connecticut State level, and qualified to compete at the Nationals in June. 6 Innovation Lab students traveled to the University of Maryland, where extensive fieldwork and their topics, including primary source interviews, research at the Greenwich Historical Society, and hours of revision outside of class, these students created final pieces that illustrated their commitment to rigorous, independent, project-based learning that Greenwich truly values. Our students are outstanding ambassadors for both Innovation Lab and for Greenwich Public Schools. As I call your name, please come to the front to be congratulated by the superintendent and the board chair, and remain here until everyone's been called up. Please hold your applause until I've called everyone up. It's a small group. For their original 10-minute play, a gripping account entitled Society's Compromise is a Whole New Crime, The Rape of Reese Taylor, Jody Bell, Sophie Anderlin, and Nina Harai. For their exhibition showcasing how Greenwich women faced the Great War, Sydney Harris and Sofia Fernandez. And for her individual original performance titled The Pentagon Papers, An Inner Conflict, An External Compromise in American Values, Emma Olmstead. Congratulations.
last but certainly not least, we are going to recognize our National Merit Scholarship honorees. Ms. Nadell.
We are very pleased to have this opportunity to honor the accomplishments of this select group of Greenwich High School seniors. The mission of the National Merit Scholarship Corporation is to recognize the academically talented students of the United States. Our semifinalists are an especially strong candidate pool, and it is likely that they will be named finalists later on this school year. We appreciate the hard work and dedication to excellence of all of these students have exhibited as members of the Greenwich High School community. And we appreciate that they bring welcome and positive recognition to our school and to the town of Greenwich. As I call your name, please come forward to the front to be congratulated by the superintendent, Mr. Piotrowski, and the board chair, and remain here until everyone has been called up. I'll do the three groups separately for a photo. Would that be? So first we have our semifinalists, Hans Iverson, Ronnie Iverson, Joe Hano, Jovita Lee, Nicholas Liu, Christopher McDonald, Michael McNulty, John Pettit, Ajax Shum, Rahul Subramanian, Derek Zhang, Catherine Yang. Congratulations, semifinalists. And now we'll congratulate our commended students. Stephen Bennett, Lucian Blaine, Jackson Blanchard, Daniel Bourgeois, Jack Childs, Kenton Cooper, Hunter Cusimano, Hadley Delaney, Grace Fahey, Parker Freeman, Jackson Freddy, Matthew Jessel, Kojiro Ishida Marsh, Kai Jennings, Henry Jonakuchi, Jonathan Ju, Hunter Kemp, Naomi Kostman, Alexander Koshikov, Natalia Leoline, Zachary Laurie,
You actually have to stick around.
Brian Luntz, Lily Marinelli, Anna Muir, Luke Muse, Monique Nikolov, Matthias Otto, Armstrong Park, Hunter Parsons, Olivia Fetch, Gabriel Quiroga, Benjamin Rifkin, Zachary Schechter, Peter Scott, Hayden Scher, Adam Sturza, Yoshihiro Takahashi, Zachary Tannenbaum, Cynthia Tibberts, Caroline Webb, Benjamin Wolf, Nicholas Wu, Jamie Yee, Madeline Yu. Congratulations to all of our commended scholars. Now we have our last group of scholars. These students were recognized from the National Hispanic Recognition Program, and we'd like to honor this evening Allison Bria, Gonzalo De Chappelle, Marcos Asiaga, John Fernandez, Renato Granma, Hans Iverson, Ronnie Iverson, Naomi Kostman, Gabriel Quiroga, Kent Schneider, Victoria Zuko. Thank you, seniors.
All right, so that brings our recognitions to a close. I want to thank everybody for coming, parents for supporting your kids. This is why we do this, so thank you all.
Can I just go home?
All right, we're going to get going in a second here. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Ms. Dayton? Let's take it. Is there a second on the consent agenda? Mr. O'Neill, any discussion? And Mr. Chair, I'm holding on you. Okay, if there is no discussion on the consent agenda, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, signify by raising your hand. Mr. Sherry, you're a yes or? That's yes. Any no's? Any abstentions? Okay, Mr. Sherry abstains, so it passes 7-0-1. Thank you. Next up, Angela Smith, school welcome.
Good evening, Chairman Bernstein, Superintendent Mayo, members of the board, and cabinet. We welcome you to NMS. I want to start tonight by introducing my right-hand girl, Sarah Obachowski, our brand new assistant principal from Stanford Public Schools. And believe me, she's already proven to be an invaluable asset. So tonight, we're going to take you on a journey through some of the things we've been doing here at North Mianus. Over the past few years, we have focused on personalizing learning in our school community. Through our 3rd and 4th grade Trailblazer teams last year to our current Wave 2 teams, we continue our focus on implementation of the strategic plan. This year, our school improvement plan is focused on building capacity through the use of goal setting and confirming, ensuring that all students are not only partners in their learning, but also have a voice in determining an action plan for growth and their own improvement. The implementation of the Second Steps program and our introduction to the PBIS framework this year ensures every student will have the tools necessary to navigate the social emotional aspects of daily life today and in the future. Finally, through our parent school initiative, North Mianus Cares, we ensure every student understands the importance of giving back to the community through activities like preparing gifts for needy families and making lunch for the homeless. Tonight, we would like to share a short video highlighting examples of goal setting in kindergarten, parent feedback on our first student-led conferences, and the perspective of a brand new 5th grade student. We assure you no children were harmed in preparing this video, and it is unedited. Thank you.
Hi, Lila.
Hi.
Would you like to tell me all about your special goal?
Sure.
Tell me about it then.
My goal is to sound out smoothly, because if I don't sound out smoothly, it won't sound right.
Oh, okay. And why have you made that your goal?
Because I do it sometimes my teacher tells me not to because it doesn't sound right, and then I won't be able to learn how to read.
Right. So how are you going to practice that goal? How are you going to
In reading time.
Really? What will you do during reading time? Tell me.
If I go into my teacher's group, then I can sound out the smooth, and if I'm in Biff and Chip, I can sound out smooth, and if I'm in every station, I can sound out the smooth way, because all of the stations have words in them, so I can sound out the words to make sure they're right.
That's right. And can you show me on the board? Can you show me where it says what your target is? That's right. Okay. And is that what you just told me there? That's really fantastic. Great. When do you hope you'll get this done by?
Maybe the end of the year.
Maybe even sooner. What do you think? Okay. All right, Lila. Thank you so much. Hi, Ali.
Hi.
So we're here to talk about what your goals are. Do you want to tell me what your goal is?
Yeah, the leave spaces between my words with a spaceman.
Why do you have to do that?
Because they don't get spaces.
Really? How do you know that?
Because then it just says blah blah blah.
Right, just says blah, 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 there are no spaces. Right. So you worked out that your goal is to leave spaces. How are you going to make that happen?
By leaving spaces.
Yeah, but how are you going to do that?
With a spaceman.
What's a spaceman?
This.
Let's have a look. So what do you do with that?
I write a word and then I put that into write another.
That's fantastic. Good. So how will you know when you've reached your goal?
When I can leave spaces without my spaceman.
That's fantastic, Ali. Well done. Thank you.
I like that there's a lot of fun games and playlists. You can choose what you want to do.
We get to make choices instead of like our teacher going to telling us that we're in a book and we're going to go on this page first and then this page. You get to just make your own choices. So it's very fun.
Playlists help me learn they help me learn by the things they do. Like they just teach me stuff that I've never known. And I really like it because I like learning new stuff.
I like learning about playlists because you can watch things, you can do things, and you don't have to go in books, so you can just do. You can do a combination of these two things. So like first you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and it's really fun. When you're on here, you get to make choices. So you know, I think this is hard for me, so I'm going to try to do that. I think this is hard for me, so I'm going to try to do that.
And if it's hard for you, maybe you should try it. And if it's easy for you, you're not really learning something. I'm from Florida. And math is different because we didn't have iPads in Florida. Well, we had iPads, but we didn't use them in school. We had textbooks, we wrote everything down. Like, in math there, we just did we did it all as a class, and she'd say she'd break us up sometimes into partners, just into, say, you work with this person, you work with this person, but we'd all be doing the same thing. We wouldn't have, it wasn't really personalized learning, it was more just learning at a specific level. So most of the stuff was it didn't go at your own pace. So I caught on to some of the things really quickly, and so I was stuck on other things. But if I was stuck on something, then I wouldn't really understand it, because we would just go on. Now, it's you go with a group, so it's not you all alone, or you're gonna have to make it up, you're with your group, so you're doing it at your own pace, and they're doing it at their own pace, so it's you're moving along fine, because they're waiting for you to finish your problem, and if you get it wrong, they'll most likely just help you finish it and see your mistake. And if they're having trouble with it also, then the teacher will usually come and help you. It's changed math by letting me go at my own pace, like I said before, but it's letting me focus on the things that I need to focus on. If I'm not, say I did pretty well with long division, but I didn't do well with word problems. I could focus on word problems. Goal setting is, I think it's pretty good, because when you're goal setting, it's after your assessment. It's after you got your grades back, so it's what do you want to focus on? Do I want to focus on this mostly, or do I want to focus on this mostly? I'm gonna want to focus on the thing that I didn't focus on. So when I'm doing that, I'm gonna try to put more effort into it, so I want to be better at it like any other thing. It keeps me more focused, because I want to get good at something. I don't want to just stay on something that I'm bored at.
What did you like about having me join the parent-teacher conference?
I enjoyed hearing about school from your perspective, as well as Ms. Ragg's perspective, but especially your perspective, because you're the one that's learning in the classroom. And I enjoyed being able to see from your perspective also how you spend the whole day in the classroom and what you're doing there.
What did you learn about me during the conference?
That you're equally as hard on yourself at home as you are at school, or at school as you are at home, which I find a little bit ridiculous, because you're a very talented, hard-working kid.
How did a student-led conference help you as a parent?
That's a good question. It helped me understand more what's going on in the classroom from your perspective, and not just the teachers. The teacher is an adult, she and I can talk on one level, but having you there and able to participate helped me better appreciate what was going on from your perspective, and to make sure that you're learning as much as you can and in the right way for you. And it seems like that's happening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I love the goal setting at all grades, but Spaceman, he's awesome. Might need to be the new school mascot. All right, next up is our public hearing. First up would be our GHS student government comments. Alex, thanks for sticking around, buddy.
Good evening, members of the board and guests. Today I'll be going over the Spirit Week at GHS. A main material objective of student government in the next few months is a Spirit Week. We're aiming at the time between midterms and February break. This Spirit Week would be winter themed and have Spirit Days very similar to those at homecoming. And we would also test out some new events or practices like possibly the snowball, a winter semi-formal. This Spirit Week serves multiple functions. First, it acts as a testing ground for new ideas for homecoming. Homecoming is one of the largest events that our school has, and it requires a lot of planning. This Spirit Week would allow student government to test out new ideas for an event of similar scale, and the result of this Spirit Week would be beneficial in planning out our next year's homecoming, even if Alex and I won't be here to enjoy it. A second main part of this Spirit Week would be to focus our school spirit. Coming off of midterms, students will be ready to step down from the stress brought on by testing, and this is a great way to do so. This Spirit Week will also work to fire up the school spirit for the second semester, bring the whole community closer together and ready to take on the second half of the year. The Spirit Week will be a very interesting time for student government because it is our ability to blaze a new trail and try out things that may become traditions in the future. Also, at the end of the day, it's very exciting to have a Spirit Week regardless of when it is, but especially at the time we've picked as a step down from midterms. We will keep you guys in the loop as more information comes. Thank you.
Chairman Bernstein, Mr. Mayo, members of the board, and all meeting attendees, welcome. I would like to begin by congratulating all the award recipients tonight on their outstanding achievements, although they seem to have left. Hopefully all of this positive energy is here to stay for this board meeting. I have to be honest, it was a tough crowd at the last meeting. Lots of good jokes went unappreciated. As for me, I'm feeling good vibes. This is actually the elementary school that I went to. I played trombone right on that stage. Learned to do a layup up there. Mr. Selborn was my teacher for 3 years, so we just caught up. But enough of that. Let's go into car commercials. So 30% of holiday season car commercials will somehow be themed around life being about giving before concluding with the classic get 0% APR financing on this brand new model. You know what I'm talking about. Someone uses the 2020 Chevy Traverse to deliver Christmas trees to every non-Christmas tree containing home or something like that. If you were to ask any member of student government why they are in student government, it's because they want to give back. They don't all drive the Chevy Traverse, but they all care deeply enough about their school and colleagues that they have sought to give to the school. They have sought to give back to the school through any means possible. This month has been one of a special giving. Today, the sophomore class had a massive 4-hour Vineyard Vines fundraiser during which 40% of proceeds went to their class activity funds. If you missed that, don't worry, the juniors are having a similar fundraiser on January 9th at Pizza Post. We have also continued our work on trying to fix certain aspects of school culture. GHS students can unite to win football championships and put together excellent orchestra concerts in the midst of steam pipe explosions. But for some reason, they can't unite to stresslessly, pretty sure that's the word, conquer midterms or clean trash after lunch in the student center. These are the things that we will be working on and have been working on. Student government's New Year's resolution is to give back to the school by solving these issues that have seemed unsolvable for years. This is why we've gotten behind Opportunity Block, new composting and recycling initiatives, and new school stress strategies. And we hope that the board and the community will resolve to support us in tackling these issues in the new year, to do their part in giving. It's easy to dismiss me and James here as kids who don't understand much about how budgets work. The truth is we don't, and we don't pretend to. Our understanding of money is in the amount of muffins we can buy at the Cardinal Cafe. But we as students of Greenwich High School know that there is something special about our school and this town and its students. Unlike the Chevy Traverse, this is the kind of special that doesn't come with 0% APR financing. It takes time, sacrifice, and yes, money to build. Thank you all, and happy holidays.
Thank you both very much. Next up is the GEA comments. Carol Sutton.
Good evening, Principal Schmidt, Chairman Bernstein, and board members, Superintendent Mayo and Cabinet, and members of the community. My name is Carol Sutton, and I'm honored to represent 900 members of the Greenwich Education Association. And today, though, we are one less. This evening, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of our dear friend and colleague, Ms. Brenda McCry, who taught at ISD and in the district for 36 years. She taught until she could teach no longer. She even got her report cards done, even as she struggled with a severe illness. Brenda reminds us to always do our best and to cherish the time we have, however long that is. So with a long agenda this evening, I'm going to start with a couple simple things. The 2019-20 or 2021 calendar. GEA appreciates the flexibility shown to modify the previous schedule from having evening conferences on Hanukkah, and how that was important to both teachers and families. We support option 1 for another reason as well, because it places the conferences, the elementary conferences, closer to the close of the marking period. Closer is better, since our youngest learners change very, very quickly, and it helps parents to get that news as quickly as they can. One GEA idea that's not reflected and may not have to be decided tonight, but just something to put in the back of your minds, is that snow days, the makeups for snow days when they're in late June, we're advocating to have those be early release. And the reason is that not only would it give all teachers more time to do all of those end of the year activities that have to get done, but also it would mirror the high school schedule that includes final exams. And never mind that at the very end of June, elementary school kids they're sort of done. Anyway, in terms of summer school, numbers look good. Summer school continues in Greenwich to provide students with an opportunity to catch up, to accelerate, or to try something that is something they may not try in the regular school year. And this is a credit to everyone who works on the program. But something you may not know about summer school is that the summer school administrator, that position is a second job. It starts, I guess, tonight with the end of the summer school report, and then it begins right away planning for the summer that's coming. This job is structured so that the person in it is concurrently completing a full-time job in the district. This may be budget-wise to combine those jobs, but it does take a toll on the person in that position. Hence, there's a high rate of turnover, and we know that that's never optimum. As for the budget, you've already heard GEA's position is that the budget should be adopted without cuts. Mr. Mayo summarized our sentiment when he stated in his introduction that he is extremely uncomfortable reducing the operating budget to a level which leaves so much less for professional learning, curriculum development, innovation, never mind unexpected costs, of which we've had several this year already. 2 weeks ago, it was abundantly clear that neither the board nor the public could stomach cuts that touched elementary classroom size, and we couldn't agree more. Yet, this evening, the proposed cuts basically pull the rug out from under professional development and curriculum development, theoretically, for a year. The reality is that all cuts hurt, and those before you are no exception. If you can imagine Greenwich Public Schools as a tree, whether you starve the roots, strip the bark, or hard prune limbs, you damage the tree. And it takes several seasons for a tree that's weakened to recover. So what do these cuts look like, just in some practical terms? One, I noticed a proposed cut of 60% to tuition for Taft workshops. While it's only a few $1,000s, and in a larger scheme of things, not much, Taft workshops are programs that GHS teachers attend to certify or recertify to teach advanced placement courses. Theoretically, the tuition will be picked up somewhere else in the Greenwich Public Schools or in GHS's budget. But what if it's not? Another example, the Summer Institute budget is decimated. If you don't know what the Summer Institute is, This is the time when teachers work together to develop curriculum, to align it with new standards, to align it with state mandates and new innovative practices. It's in the summer because teachers don't want to be out of their classrooms and the administration doesn't want to be out of their classrooms. So they get together at the end of June to do this work. If you look in your packet at any program, it's like from pages, from the middle of the packet on, or maybe just look at mathematics. It's a 100% reduction. 100%. The same is true for physical education and health. 100% cut or deferred, even though graduation requirements have increased. How does a year of redesign and defer, in effect making do, fit with the sense of urgency that you discussed at last week's board professional development session? For me, it doesn't. And as Bob Stacy said recently, and I've quoted it several times, it's not possible to catch up and advance at the same time. And this budget will put us in a stage of catching up the year after next. So it's a lean and in some ways mean budget. It looks like everyone's going to be asked to do more with less, even as expectations on teachers and the administration increases and the pace of change accelerates. So I'll conclude with this. GEA recognizes and appreciates how difficult it is for the superintendent and his team to create a responsible budget that's aligned with the values, goals, and objectives of the Greenwich Public Schools, which are large and diverse, and we appreciate that, and thank you. We also recognize and appreciate how hard it must be for the board to weigh its short and long-term priorities with those of other town bodies. Never mind how hard it is to hire a superintendent. I admit I have not read every page of the budget book. I'm sorry, Ms. O'Donnell. But I bet there's no budget line in it for the cost of getting another new superintendent up to speed. Never mind the cost of another national search. If we can't afford a budget with level services in 2019-20, we certainly can't afford another year of hoping we find a superintendent who stays. In fact, he is already here. We wish you a peaceful holiday season and a happy, healthy new year. Thank you.
Next up is PTA Council.
Good evening, Superintendent Mayo, Chairman Bernstein, Principal Schmidt, members of the board, cabinet community. My name is Karen Hirsch, President of PTA Council, and with me is Cricket Diamond, First VP. This time of the year, we're often overwhelmed by the busyness of the season, but we wanted to take a moment to thank our teachers and coaches who inspire students every day, and to celebrate our students who come to learn, to school ready to learn, achieve, and grow. And we also value your role in enabling the best learning to happen, and appreciate your focus on increasing achievement for all students. We look forward to seeing the results of the promised comprehensive program review. However, we do want to better understand the process and metrics being used to determine those results. We're also proud of our role working with the district and of our contributions to many of the 2018's achievements. We look forward to tonight's discussion on policies that pertain to community relations. Our strategic plan includes space goals, and yet no funding has ever been slated to support them. In order to increase the public's understanding of and confidence in our schools, the board must create opportunities for community engagement. Council and our 15-member PTAs are partners in education with you and will happily work with you to find ways to support your goals in this area and others. Turning now to FY 19-20 operating and capital budgets. Council supports the budgets as originally submitted and are not in support of any reductions, especially those that affect the classroom. We share Superintendent Mayo's concern regarding reducing our operating budget to a 1.95% increase It is not enough to keep current services level. We are additionally distressed that there will be very little funding to support innovation and curriculum development or funds to cover any unexpected costs. We're aware that the board would like to work cooperatively with other town bodies and that funds are not unlimited, and are pleased that the board sent a very clear message that elementary class sizes should not increase and that there should be no cuts to the middle school intramural program. However, changes to the secondary school staffing model still seem possible. And while we understand that students do not come in .8s, changes to the staffing model can have a serious impact on a student's education. At the middle school level, it's been stated that the revised model would spread the impact equally across all secondary schools. However, this is false. As we know, Western Middle School, which has been showing significant gains in closing the academic divide, will feel it the most, as it is staffed to meet unique student needs. At GHS, students are currently being shut out of classes, and for those who are interested in taking electives with a 4-year arc, they lose the ability to do so if they cannot take the introductory level class as a freshman. With known changes already slated for the incoming class of 2023, including an increase in students matriculating into GHS and in credits required for graduation, does it truly make sense to add another change which has the possibility of reducing the number of course offerings available?
We do see positives in the recommended reduction in professional development, but only as a 1-year deferral, as we are all too familiar with change that has been promised to only last a year, which then becomes common practice. There is a difference between improving teachers and improving teaching itself. We have excellent educators doing amazing things here, many of whom work collaboratively and yet often don't realize how much they truly have to share. Peer knowledge sharing can be a powerful tool to help educators teach more effectively, uncover problems, discover best practices, and find new or better resources when given time to do so. When teachers work together, students reap the benefits. Sharing best practices can improve teaching methods and student outcomes district-wide. However, we are concerned that cuts to STEM are being suggested as the new NGSS science standards have just been implemented, and more work in that area is needed. Parents have long been asking for an increased focus on curriculum and wonder what the true opportunity cost of these reductions will be. It might be worthwhile to consider a review of current professional development to see which programs result in better student outcomes. Remember, a quick fix or short-term solution should be just that, as it allows us time to prepare for better long-term solutions. Improving achievement requires professional development and time to create curriculum and share best practices. It takes years of continuous hard work where payoffs are not immediate, but the rewards, when they do come, are lasting. We must also focus on the long-term investments we are making to support our school facilities and acknowledge that funding basic maintenance is simply not enough. On the capital side, we fully support the budget as presented and appreciate the thoughtful consideration that went into prioritizing schools with the most immediate needs. Student health and safety is paramount. For example, the GHS entryway, while being open, airy, and filled with natural light, is just that, open. Our schools must meet the needs of all students by providing secure spaces to maximize learning potential and be ADA compliant. We are also pleased to see that funds for a new piano have been added and that the board is still committed to making improvements to Cardinal Stadium. As Malcolm X so eloquently said, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We thank you for your continued leadership and wish you all happy holidays.
All right, next up is our community comments. The first speaker is Ann Fetch, followed by Maureen Bernard. Let's get it backwards.
That's okay. You switched up. Yeah. No, it's switched up.
3 minutes each.
Good evening, Chairman Bernstein, Interim Superintendent Mayo, board members, cabinet members, and guests. I am Maureen Bonanno, and this is Ann Fetch, and we are co-presidents of the GHS PTA. The GHS PTA was very busy the first half of the year, and it's already gearing up for the second half of the year. The very popular summer fair will take place on January 23rd, and our next general meeting on the evening of January 31st will feature a panel of experts on the timely topic of teen vaping. A major concern we are hearing from our parent body is the vaping issues at Greenwich High School. The PTA is doing what we can to assist the high school to address this growing problem. At our January meeting, the expert speakers will be presenting the teen vaping epidemic, what every parent needs to know. We are encouraging all high school and middle school parents to attend. We are also in the process of purchasing vaping detectors for some of the bathrooms at the high school. The vaping detectors have been installed in other schools with great success in discouraging vaping. Parents are also concerned about safety at Greenwich High School, and so we are very happy to see that the cost of the design study for the GHS entranceway remains a top priority for the administration, and we hope to see it remain a top priority through the remainder of the budget process.
And last but not least, our membership is concerned about the possible cuts to the interim superintendent's proposed operating budget, in particular, the reduction in staff. We are hoping you will reconsider changing the class model and not lower the ratio of staff to students in the high school. Class size matters, and having more adults around teenagers is always a better model. When a teenager needs help, whether it's emotional or educational, being able to find an adult who has time to listen is important. The teachers and staff at Greenwich High School are already stretched to the limit. It's hard to find time to sit with a teacher for extra help. This is extremely important as we move towards an environment of personalized learning. Not only teachers are busy, but guidance counselors are completely booked all day long. You will never see a guidance counselor's office empty, not even for a minute. Also, the media center and student center will be more crowded, and we will need more supervision, not less. In addition to safety issues, there will be scheduling issues. Students will get shut out of classes because teachers will have reached their 120 contract maximum. It happens already, and it'll happen even more next year. Class choice matters. Students should not have to choose classes based on availability. They should be able to take the classes that are right for them. We are all here to support our Greenwich students, and we hope you will consider supporting the original budget proposed by the interim superintendent on November 8th. Any reductions to this budget will have a negative impact on the process we have made this far in achieving the goals in our strategic plan. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here tonight, and happy holidays.
Thank you very much. All right, so the next speaker is Annette Fiore, followed by Toby Hirsch and Lucas Gazianos. And sorry, just before you start, speakers get 3 minutes.
I'll make my comments very brief. Thank you so much. Good evening, Superintendent Mayo, and ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Ed. Thank you so much for your service and for your steadfast work in support of all of the children and the Greenwich Public School system. I was an early financial supporter of the replacement of the GHS PAC piano, and I'm a continued supporter of this effort. Piano is a foundational instrument for a performing arts center, any performing arts center. My children are part of a small but not insignificant group of accomplished pianists at GHS. Many students there perform at a very high level on stages like Carnegie's Wild Recital Hall and Steinway Hall in New York. We have built a fantastic performance hall here, but we don't have a proper instrument for the space. And so it is not utilized as it could be in either performance or music selection. There are a lot of lost opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, we are hosting the Western Regionals this year, and this is an opportunity to showcase our beautiful space, but it does need a proper instrument. I understand that purchasing a 9-foot Steinway is not an insignificant expense. However, rebuilding the current piano is not worth the time or the money, as the piano will still be inadequate for the space. A used piano is not necessarily cheaper because you don't have the history of maintenance on that instrument. As my son Chris said, it's like building a $50 million garage for a rusted station wagon. I kind of agree with that analogy. Thank you very much for building a beautiful home for performing arts in Greenwich. Please complete this space with the foundational instrument appropriate for the venue. Thank you very much for your time. Happy holidays.
Thank you. So, as Toby and Lucas are coming up, that's it for speakers that are signed up. So if there are others that would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda item, I'd ask you to stand off to the side and then we'll have you come up.
Good evening, board members. I'm Lucas Gazianis. This is Toby Hirsch. We're juniors at Greenwich High School, and we'd like to talk about the Opportunity Block. When we first heard that the Opportunity Block was approved, we were less than thrilled. But since the beginning of the school year, we have begun to see the merits of the idea. We think that it has been effective in making it easier for students to meet with teachers, expanding the number of students engaged in extracurriculars, and decreasing missed time for athletes. However, it has not been as effective as many initially hoped, and we do not believe it has been as effective as it has been presented. We also do not believe that it has been as effective as it can be. The major flaw of the Opportunity Block is that it's predominantly not used productively. Some students make good use of the time, but in our experiences and those of our peers, most students do not use it effectively. In fact, it is very common to see students on their phones or playing video games. Most concerning, however, is the fact that these students are not quietly unproductive. They are chatting, they are getting up and wandering around so that even the students who do want to work are distracted. And at 2:45, after 6 hours of school, you'd be hard-pressed to find many high school students who will be able to tune out all those distractions to do their homework.
Fundamentally, it is impossible to force students to be productive in unstructured time. The best we can hope to do is create an environment where the students who do want to be productive can do so. And the best way to do that is to eliminate the requirement that students stay in their last block class during the Opportunity Block. This seems counterintuitive, but in reality, what this would do is remove those who will be unproductive under any circumstances and leave only the students who intend to work. Unlike our current situation, they will be in an environment where they're able to do so. It will also significantly increase the number of students engaging in clubs. Right now, in order to get a club meeting during the Opportunity Block, a teacher must fill out a form before the beginning of the semester, and students must commit to the club for an entire semester or whenever the administration decides to open an add-drop period. The reason many clubs are so successful at our high school is that they give students freedom with responsibility. Clubs can be started at any point during the year, and students can come and go between clubs throughout the entire year, allowing them to experiment and find the clubs where they can truly do something meaningful to them. Letting students leave their last block class is the first stage of the three-stage plan that we have developed with our recently founded club, the Student Policy Initiative. The next stages of this plan create an entirely new personalized schedule for GHS students. We've already emailed this plan to the board, and we have printed copies here if anyone is interested in those. And so we are excited to be here tonight and hope that we get the chance to work with you on this issue. And we would urge you to consider the first phase of this plan for the second semester. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. So that's it for speakers that have signed up. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item? All right, hearing none, we are going to move on to our monthly reports, starting with the superintendent.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening and welcome to the last Board of Education meeting of 2018. Tonight we have to make some decisions on both the operating and capital budgets. We, the Cabinet and building leadership, have put forth to you a budget that reflects a 1.95% increase over last year's budget, and reduced our capital ask from $51 million to $26 million. We are fully in line with the BET budget guidelines, and we are comfortable with these types of reductions for 1 year. Next year, when we present our budget to you, we will have conducted an extensive program inventory and outcomes audit. We expect to gain a deeper understanding of the return of our investment in order to better inform our budget and operational plans. I will be presenting a project plan for this work at the January 17th Board of Education meeting. This work will help us develop a budget that is meaningful, lacks redundancy, and defines the purpose, success metrics, number of students served, direct expense, and the staffing of each of our programs in the Greenwich Public Schools. It is my pleasure to report to you that Coscop School will be opening to all of its students on January 2nd. Teachers have already started to move back into their classrooms and will continue this work over the next few days. My thanks go out to the Coscop community, parents, students and staff, our facilities department, Dan Watson especially. I want to give a shout out to Scuba Dan, custodians, and our construction company, Werner, who really put in a great deal of work to get us where we are today. The longest field trip ever will soon be over for kindergarten, first, and second grade. As you know, we have lost the use of the PAC and 2/3 of our gymnasium due to the failure of a piece of equipment in one of the ceilings in the lobby of the PAC. The folks from Hygienics have taken down all walls and ceiling tiles that were exposed to this leak, and Werner Construction has already mobilized to replace all the damage. The company that installed our gym floor has returned to install a portion of the floor so we can begin using it as soon as possible. We probably will not be able to use either facility for a good portion of January. The good news is that our Holly concert, last night's Holly choral concert, went on as scheduled last night at Darien High School. Thanks to the staff at Darien, to Laura Newell, Patrick Taylor, Rick Piotrowski, we were able to hold that concert, which was truly amazing. Again, we need to thank our facilities department for getting the risers over to Darien in a timely manner. Everything is possible when we work together. Finally, at our next Board of Education meeting, I will be presenting the first read of the School Resource Officer MOU, and we'll begin a discussion on the Parks and Recreation MOU that specifies the responsibilities of the maintenance of Board of Education fields and property. I have met with Mr. Joe Siciano to discuss our concerns, and he was able to answer the majority of the questions that the board had for his department. We also discovered that there is an updated MOU from the year 2016 that may or may not have been presented to the board. I will also have that document posted for your review. Thank you.
Mr. Scher.
Ralph, two questions. That you buried the lead. That last statement was like should have been the opener. The MOU that we may or may not have seen. Going back to the floor of the gym and the PAC, is there an opportunity to get the gym opened before the PAC is solved? I mean, it seems to me those seem to be kind of running in tandem, and we're obviously having enough negative impact on our music programs by virtue of this disaster. But it's also bled over into, or I guess spilled over into, impacting all of our winter sports programs. So what opportunities are there to speed up on getting the gym back online faster than the PAC will obviously come online?
Well, luckily, the materials that we needed for the gym floor were on the shelf, and the other lucky part was that the wood for the floor itself is actually on its way to Greenwich as we speak. So there is a chance that the gym might be ready before the PAC. I have Dan Watson over there, and he might be able to comment on that better than I. So,
Is there a scheduled date for the gym yet?
We don't have a scheduled date.
When will we have that?
I hope to have the schedule tomorrow afternoon. We just received word about the wood being available at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. So I'm counting on the flooring contractor to push things along, but I have not received a definitive schedule from them yet, other than we'll be done, the first part of the new year. I don't have an exact date.
And then the second part, and then I'll yield the floor, is I'm pretty certain I didn't see that revised MOU in 2016. And, I'm glad you uncovered it. Once again, another Ralph Mayo special didn't happen when you were here. But that's a pretty serious issue, and I hope that our Chairman will make that an agenda item almost immediately. It needs to be discussed in public. This issue of the town and this thing with Parks and Rec can no longer be buried inside memorandums that only we get from superintendents on weekends, and I'm glad you brought it out into the open, Ralph. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayo said he's going to post that, so we're going to have that document for our next discussion. Dr. Francis, did you have a question?
I was still on the gym floor. I'm trying to remember, but as I recall, there was sort of a achingly slow process of needing to finish the floor, wait for it to dry, refinish it. I mean, that's kind of a drawn-out process, right? So it's not like you slept. Well, it's like a third of it on this new place. It's a good chunk of it. It's not really much of a question, except to say that it's not like you just put the wood down and you're done. I sort of feel like there's a whole process that has to go after that.
Okay, with that, we're going to move on to reports of officers, committees, and liaisons. So starting at this end, if there's anything. And Ms. O'Neill, Ms. Stowe, you have a report?
No.
Okay. Ms. O'Neill, I know you have some policies on the agenda, so nothing from PGC. Anything at this end? No. So New Lebanon School, the move-in date is February 19th. Put that on your calendar. Details to be provided. But moving on time, on budget, by the way. Just want to make sure I repeat that. Did you get that, Ken?
Yes,
on time, on budget. That's where we are. All right, if there's no other reports, we'll move on to the first discussion item, which is the budget Q&A round 2. Now, we are obviously going to be under action taking up the budget. So, Mr. Mayo, if there's anything you want to point out, we can do that here or have a deeper discussion when we get to the budget items.
The only thing I wanted to, sorry about that. The only thing I wanted to point out was that we answered another set of questions, and the board should have received them today. So just so you know that we have completed this set and then another set going forward.
And any detailed discussion we can take up as part of the actual discussion on the operating and capital budgets. All right, so with that, we'll move on to the second discussion item, which is policy first read. Ms. O'Neill.
Yes. As our usual process, we present the policies to the board for a first read discussion. Then we go back and take all the comments and then bring them back for a second read. These first read policies come from a variety of sections in the K book, from communications, which is the policy series we're working on now, finishing up personnel, have one here on instruction, and the rest of them are on construction. And as we go along, we ask for input from the various administrators. So I present to you the first read policies. Does anybody have any comments? Or the one I wanted to point out was the one, the monitoring report, 16180, which is a new monitoring report that was discussed last year, and then Ralph and Irene discussed it again, and so we are at a point now where we've had input from all sorts of people on this, and so we're looking for input from the board. It's a pretty simple thing, considering if you've been on the board for a while, you know the monitoring report template sometimes has been pages and pages. We've really got this down to basically 5 questions to make it succinct, to give us the data and information that we need without a whole lot of other stuff.
All right. Ms. Dayton?
In policy on community relations, communication with the public, 1110.1. In the bullet point section, do we want to set aspirational language in place as to how much contact parents should have with the district without specifying in what way? That could include parent-teacher conferences, it could be curriculum nights, open houses, participation in field day. I don't think it's directive enough as a policy, and I'd like you to consider that as we move to the second reading.
Okay, so you
So
Ms. Neal.
you would like to add a bullet there? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rabin.
For the policy on the monitoring report templates, at least as I've been on the board, we've had 2 templates, and no one seems to adhere to them. Is there any teeth that we can put in that, like, we don't have to accept a policy or a monitoring report if it's not in the right format?
Well, there is a statement in here that doesn't say whether it's in the right format or not, but it does say that if the board is not, and it's actually from the original policy that we're bringing forward, that if the board is not happy or has additional questions about the report, then they send it back for the additional information. But I suppose you could always say, yes, if it's not following the template. But we're really hoping that it will, because it should be easier on the administrator, because it's very clear we want, what are the strengths and weaknesses, SMART goals, something that we've asked for years, so finally it's in black and white, that SMART goals, what did the program achieve, what are the achievements outside maybe of the SMART goals, maybe something else happened, what were the challenges of the program, and one I think is really vital is what were the cost of the program, because we talk about budget during budget season. We should be talking about budget all the way through. On each report we come, so we know what programs cost what.
I'd still like to see some teeth in it, because a lot of times a monitoring report is an update from a prior one that someone just put in, like this year's info. So, I really would like to see some teeth in that.
So I just want to play off of what Lauren's suggesting. One of the issues I've always had through the years is, what are we accepting when we accept the monitoring report? So I'm happy to see that the recommendations are going to be front and center. But maybe think about, I don't know, his phone is doing that. Maybe make clear that when we're accepting the report, we are accepting the deliverance of the report. The recommendations we would have to accept separately. I think when we adopt them, we should basically do that.
Right, and that was one of your suggestions a couple of years ago, that any recommendations or new initiatives have to be front and center on the cover. So yes, that's what we'd be accepting, but we'll make that language clear.
Great. Mr. Sherry, do you, anything else on this first read? All right, and I guess PGC will be meeting in January, probably before the board meets, so you can all take this up then. All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we're moving on to our action items. So the first action item is the FY19 budget resolution revised draft. Ms. O'Donnell, I don't know if you want to come on over, or you want to use the mic over there. And actually, does somebody want to make a motion to put this on the table? On the cover sheet? Ms. Dayton? So you're moving it as on the cover sheet. Is there a second? Dr. Francis? All right, with that, Ms. O'Donnell, if you want to explain what we're looking at.
This item was actually covered as part of our FY20 budget resolution discussion earlier this year. And it relates to a very specific item, the Medicaid receipts that we, Medicaid reimbursements that we received from the state. The language was already in there from prior budget resolutions, but we needed additional language in order to be able to access the funds once received. And so that very specific line that we wanted to add states each reimbursement shall become an appropriation that the Board of Education shall add to the appropriate accounts. At this time, we are already billing and collecting money from the program, and we're in fiscal year 19, but this resolution that you reviewed earlier this year applies to FY20, which begins on July 1. So there was a suggestion made that we revise the FY19 budget resolution or propose a change to the FY19 budget resolution to include this line item so that the Board of Ed could get access to the funds that are being returned and in line with the intent of the state statute, that the funds would be added in addition to funds originally appropriated to the Board of Ed.
So I actually got two questions. So one, the language has been vetted with the town legal department?
Yes.
Okay, and my second question is, how is that money going to be used? Is it going to be added to the special ed account, or is it going to be used to offset money expended for these expenses?
That hasn't been decided right now, and we know we're experiencing additional costs in special education, and we do specifically have a couple of costs that we know those funds could be used for. So we have an administrator who is spending time submitting the claims, a clerical position that is submitting the claims each month or on a quarterly basis. And so that position can actually be submitted for reimbursement through the program, but they're on a grant. So in order to submit for that position, they have to be on the operating budget. And in order to put them on the operating budget, we need funding. And we technically, I guess, per the budget resolution, the way it's written today, we're not entitled to that funding. So this is hopefully to help get that settled.
Ms. Rabin? Same question. All right, Ms. Tatum.
I fully support this agenda item. Everything is fantastic, but I'd like you to confirm that this is financial year 19. For financial year 20's budget resolutions, 20, I want to make sure the words Asia Society grant are inserted into the budget resolution. Can you just confirm that for FY20, which is a different document, that the Asia Society grant is pre-approved?
I can't confirm that the board did approve it already, so yes, it is
And is it
included in
in the
FY20.
document for FY20?
It is.
Okay.
And that was turned over already to the town.
Ms. O'Neill.
So this Medicaid money that we're receiving, this is additional money that we're receiving, so it's increasing our operating budget?
It's additional money, but in order for it to increase our operating budget, we need to add this clause to the budget resolution.
What? Excuse me, first of all, I can't hear you, and you've answered. So why but that then would increase the special ed budget, no?
It could, we haven't necessarily applied it there.
So why would we want to do that? Why wouldn't we want the BET then to handle this money and not have it come to the Board of Ed and increase our operating and increase the special ed budget?
The legislation, we could have opted to bill for Medicaid for years, we didn't. The state is now requiring districts of our size to do that. And part of the regulation is that the money comes back to the Board of Education.
Right, but I think Ms. O'Neill's question is, where is that money coming back going to be used? And I guess, I'm happy to pass this tonight. I think it's really smart, but I think that there's going to need to be some further discussion with the board about how that money is going to get applied. Mr. Sheriff.
If you do this now, put it in the hands of the BET. The BET is going to decide what they're going to do. Now, they don't have the authority, I'm pretty certain they don't have the authority to go back and retroactively cut their budget. But by doing this, if this money's going to flow to us, and we expect it to happen in 2000, we're now going to start the trigger mechanism, which is budgeting differently, which is they're going to estimate how much we're going to get. They're going to reduce our budget by that. And by the way, if we don't get it in 2020, guess who holds that risk? The board, not the BET anymore. So, but if what Mary's saying is valid, which is it's federal regulations and therefore you must do it, just recognize we're now starting down the path of we're holding the revenue risk, where currently the town holds the revenue risk. But hey,
Well, it makes me uncomfortable that we don't know what we're going to do with this money, that we don't seem to have a plan, it sort of sits there. And now that there's a possibility of it greatly increasing the sped budget. And for years, we did not collect the money from the state based on the fear that the BET would then take from us, whatever. But that's money that was sat there with the state that we should have been using all these years. So it was sort of not very productive thinking. I would hope that we could talk to the BET and gain something, if not all this money, and I doubt all of it would get it. But I still think we ought to be logical about this and not be taking money which we don't know where we want to put it, we don't know how we want to spend it, but we know that part of it is going to increase the special ed budget.
Mr. Chair.
This is what happens when we start down this road of we're an independent authority and all funds should come to us, and we haven't had a full-throated conversation in the board about the implications of that. And this is what happens when we do, this is a very significant policy decision. There have been some board members who've gone into meetings and said different things on this topic when the board has not had a discussion about it, and it has the potential to fundamentally change the relationship relating to budgeting with the town of Greenwich and the Board of Education. It may be the right thing to do. What's really problematic about this is this looks like some little innocuous thing. This is major and strategic about the way the Board of Education gets funded, and we as a board haven't really discussed it. So, at this point, it's 2019, we're in the middle of that budget year, so we should probably send that over to the BET. But I would hope that we put on our agenda a discussion of this, people going around talking about the Board of Education is independent of the town, because that's that has big implications behind that, and it's been happening more than I'm comfortable with lately.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, so the item is Jennifer, sorry, go ahead.
First of all, I have no idea what Mr. Scher is referencing in terms of board members talking to bodies in town about Medicaid reimbursement. I certainly haven't been in those meetings and I've not heard it. I think we need to keep in mind that we are overspending in special education massively. Last year we had about $1 million over budget. We're halfway there, more than halfway there now. We want to make sure that we have money to cover expenses such as out-of-district placements. Would you prefer to go for an interim appropriation on special education? I think you need to think about the consequences of what you're saying and how things play out.
Okay, there's no further discussion. The item on the table is the approval of the recommended revised 2018-2019 budget resolution on the Medicaid reimbursement. All those in favor? Okay, 6. All opposed? All abstaining? Passes 6-1-1. Thank you. All right, so our next topic is our revised FY20 operating budget. Mr. Mayo.
Okay, can we put it on the table first?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yep, that's fine. All right, do I have a motion to put
Here,
it on the table? Mr. Sheriff.
I move that we adopt the superintendent's proposed 2019-20 operating budget of $164,706,000.
Sorry, Peter, that's what you want to do. Okay, because there's a.
I know exactly what right.
Okay.
Okay. Move to adopt the superintendent's proposed 2019-20 operating budget of $164,774,196.
Is there a second?
Which was his original proposal that he sent to us.
Is there a second? Hearing none, would somebody else like to make a motion? Ms. Stowe.
I'd like to move that we approve the revised proposal for the fiscal year 20 operating budget of $163,364,193 as presented.
Second from Ms. Dayton. Mr. Mayo.
What we've done here is we went back to the table after the last board meeting, and we decided to, we heard clearly that elementary class size was not something that we wanted to move forward with, nor were middle school intramurals. So those two items were taken off, and we added considerable amounts in curriculum and instruction, professional development, in those areas. Almost, I would say almost $800,000 came out of the academics. So that's where we are right now. We took 2 items off and went into professional learning, as I said, curriculum, professional development, and digital subscriptions, some high school textbooks, some digital resources, and monies for some additional elementary sections. And that's where we are. And that's a reduction of $1,410,003 from the 2.83 that we had originally proposed.
Discussion. Mr. Sheriff.
So I want to clarify, Ralph, this is the budget that will cut the budget to the 2.0%, that 1.95% below, it's essentially a little bit below the BET's guidelines. So it's taking every cut, including those that you've listed, obviously you've listed here, impacting some of high school FTE, high school classes, so on and so forth. It's everything that's in this document. It includes every single cut. And that's your new proposal to the board.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Francis.
I'm trying to remember an exact question, but it was in the answers it was said that we'd get some more information tonight. For example, one of the things that came up during the comments was, we're taking 100% out from some of the math, professional learning, but it was 100%, I believe, of some small portions of it. But what I've tried to do is go back and look at where our spending had been over the last few years in charts from prior budgets. And in a lot of the cases, it looks like where it was putting us back is maybe where we were a year ago, in some cases more than where we were 2 or 3 years ago. But it was hard to tell that from here. So I was trying to get a sense when you're looking at the cut in, for example, math professional learning, overall, are we cutting 10% of it, 20% of it, 50% of it? My understanding from looking back is I don't think we're actually cutting anywhere close to 100%. It was just 100% of some little sub pieces of it. So do you have any more ballpark information for that, just to help us? Because our current budget doesn't really help us figure that out. I had to kind of go back to previous budgets to get a feel for the overall numbers.
I do have the question, but I'm still doing that analysis. That takes time, but
I'm just trying to get a ballpark sense. Is it that we're cutting our professional learning in math by 20% or 80%? Kind of, if I just add up roughly where things were, a year ago versus a few years ago, I'm just trying to line up those numbers. It's clearly not anywhere close to 100%.
no, and we're trying to, my team is here with me, and we built the proposals and presented them to Superintendent Mayo collectively. So we're trying to use this as an opportunity to revisit and evaluate. It's not 100%. It's not going to be easy, but we need the time to now redesign as we go forward for next year. So we're going to look for new ways of providing teachers with the professional learning in different delivery models, such as online opportunities. Certainly a train the trainer, that's been intact. Our teachers are already teaching teachers, and I think you saw the most recent email with regard to the January 30th day. 93 of our own teachers are teaching their teacher colleagues. So that's already in motion, and we will continue to do that and find those opportunities, but we just need more time to now redesign our approach.
So I'm sorry, just to go back to my question for a second. So if I look back just as a ballpark number at 2018-19 budget, and I kind of just try and add up the things that look like they're professional learning under the math section, it comes out to 150 or 160,000. So if you look at 50,000 coming out of that, it's taking. I don't mean to say this is not an impactful change, but it's taking out maybe 25 or 30%, certainly not something close to 100%.
Right, and I did not calculate all of the percentages right now, so I don't have that for you.
So I do want to point out, right, we're building a budget for next fall. Under the state statute, basically, we're asked to prepare an itemized estimate. This is our estimate as to what things are going to be. Pattern and practice allow us through budget transfers, and we actually have some on the agenda tonight, to move money around. So within Irene's budget, if there's a need to change something in math, we have the ability to do that. Obviously, it's from a smaller pool, we're starting from a smaller pool, but there is some opportunity to do that. And I think that work happens. We see these budget transfers on a monthly basis. I would not be surprised to see them next year. We've seen them historically. So this, I think, was your best guess. I understand we haven't done the program evaluations, and as you do those, you may find efficiencies in other areas and be able to change the funding around. So I take a little bit of comfort in that. Ms. Dayton.
I'd love to hear any words of wisdom from Mr. Mayo or Ms. Parisi about our personalized learning pilot and how this document supports or doesn't support it. I didn't submit that question in advance, but because it's hard to piece together the impact to digital tools, the impact to curriculum renewal. If you could just give us an overview of how it impacts personalized learning in the elementary schools for the pilot, that would be helpful.
So, right. We are committed to making learning personal for all of our learners, and we will make that happen. And what we're seeing now, even in Wave 2, so the roadmap that we presented in the beginning of the school year will remain. Again, will we make some small adjustments? Sure. But that's our commitment and our promise, and we will continue to do that. In some cases, what we're learning, as we operationalize the strategic plan through those critical elements, partners in learning, student ownership, student regulation, which you saw tonight in the video, sometimes doesn't just happen just because of the digital tools. It's happening because of the student-teacher relationships, those conversations. We're developing that student agency through so many different ways. So again, we will do some things differently, but the roadmap we presented, we're still committed to. We can still create playlists. Will we do them, K-12 in that year? Probably not, but we will continue to phase all of that work in. And honestly, that's what's manageable at the building level and what we can do because we go out to the schools. So that's probably not the best answer you want right at this moment, but we're still committed.
Ms. Bell.
I just wanted to take a step back rather than focusing on each cut. I didn't mean you had to step back. I'm just saying, I wanted to take a step back and say that I wanted to focus a little bit on the positive, which is that this is actually still a $3 million increase year over year. And if nothing else, it's a 3.6% increase for our teachers. And to me, we're investing most then in the people who have the most direct impact on our children. So that's where I'd want to put my money. And in fact, we're putting a lot of our money there this year. So I kind of want to just sort of have that overall look at the budget in that sense. Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill.
I know it's really difficult to cut professional development and curriculum development, but I think it would make it easier for everybody if we had a true evaluation of those programs and that we could make a decision on data, what's really working in professional development, of all the programs we have, what's having the most impact and how do we know that through data. And also the curriculum development. We have not seen, I believe, in some years a new curriculum. What we keep hearing is that it's being tweaked. It would be nice if the board knew what was being developed in the curriculum development, why that was chosen, and how it is associated with our strategic plan. Because really everything we should be doing should be backed up to the strategic plan, and I don't think we do that very well at asking those questions. And the other program, I think, which is probably a little bit more difficult to evaluate, but I'm sure it can be, is the instructional coaches. What impact are they having? Can we see a correspondence to their work in certain areas? And are they focused? Is their work focused on particular parts of the strategic plan? So I think once we have data, we will be able to look at the budget in a much more insightful and thoughtful way and make the cuts based on data as we go through the year, as these programs come to us with dollars assigned to them, and not over a couple month period sit here and make these cuts, which I think are quite manageable, but I would like to be able to make them with more certainty with data.
Ms. Raven.
And the other side of the data coin is where to make investments. So it's not always about cuts. If we had, the program review and had the outputs or, oh, I'm so tired, the outcomes.
That's right. Mr. Schmidt? Irene, did you want to respond?
It's an important reminder on page 10 in the proposed operating budget. I did include the hyperlink to our academic quarterly report where we did provide an extensive overview of all of the SMART goals and the work accomplished during the Curriculum Institute. So certainly out of our program review, we can refine that, but that was an extensive update on all the goals and the phased approach that started in 2015 to 2020.
Mr. Chair.
I won't be voting for this budget, and I want to make that clear. As I made clear the other day, I will not support a budget that directly impacts the number of teachers in classrooms in any level of the system, and it directly impacts the courses that we offer. This plan right here absolutely violates that principle. We will be cutting teacher positions by doing this. It's right here in the document. And in addition to that, we will be, and you can't dispute it, anybody can read this. And I expect somebody to now quibble with me about how many we are cutting in the classroom. That will be a fact if this budget is accepted by the board. And in addition to that, a lot of these cuts fall not in discretionary areas. I don't see anything in special in summer school and what have you. It's let's go take digital resources like Newsla, which is quite effective, take it essentially out of the classroom. So I understand that this is where we landed. And in addition to this, and I've sent this to the full board, everybody has this in email, everyone's seen the dialogue between myself and the chairman of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. The chairman of the Board of Estimate and Taxation made very clear, she had a clear opportunity to absolutely reinforce to us the guidelines after she'd made a public statement that if the Board of Education felt they didn't, to deliver what they needed to deliver to schools, they didn't necessarily need to meet the guideline, they should send us that budget. For some reason, what we've decided to do, or what's proposed here, and I think it's not the administration's fault, it's what the board, some members of the board seem to have guided to this, was get to this number, and they gave us a proposal, and we're walking into this with our eyes wide open, what that means. So to do this is essentially cutting and impacting teachers in the classroom, and I'm sorry I can't get behind that. I think there's other opportunities to potentially meet this number, but this is not the right way to do it.
So, Mr. Chair, I actually agree with you. This is a cut budget. There's no mistaking that. I understand that completely. We have tried to minimize the impact in the direction to the administration. They have gone, they have done a lot of work. Is that work done? No, I don't think so by any means. We really want those program evaluations. I think the administration is going to benefit greatly from that work. And they're going to roll their sleeves up and they're going to do it. Do we have it when we need it right now? No. So they're taking their best stab at what this is. I will say Newsela, they're switching from a paid version to a free version. It's not leaving the classroom. I always envisioned when we went into digital learning that the tools were going to change over time, just like the things we use in our lives change over time. I cannot tell you how many files are resident on this computer in Word. But guess what I also have? I have files that are in Word Perfect and I can't open them. I spent years and years of my life using a program that no longer exists. These are changes that happen over time. Nothing is static in education. It may move a little slower than the outside world, but we're going to see changes. And I think through the program evaluations, I think through a lot of the hard work and the pushing and prodding and the open conversations that we're having, these things will get better over time. But it's a cut budget. You're right. I agree. But I'm going to vote for it. Any other discussion? All right, with that, all those in favor of accepting the, sorry, I'm going to get the motion in front of me. One second, I want to make sure I have it in front of me. All right, the motion on the table is to approve the revised proposed FY20 operating budget of $163,364,193. All those in favor? All opposed? Passes 7-1. Thank you very much. All right, with that, we're going to move on to our capital budget. Can we get a motion to accept the capital budget? It's on the cover sheet, Ms. Soap.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the revised proposed fiscal year 1920 capital budget of $26,012,281 as presented.
Second, Ms. Olson. Discussion, Mr. Mayo.
We went back and looked at the capital budget proposal, and our prioritization was based on academic space upgrades, security upgrades, life and safety, ADA compliance, replacement needs, and risk mitigation. Those were the criteria we used to rank our major projects. Our major projects are the 3 oldest elementary schools in this district and the entranceway to Greenwich High School. Another one of our projects, Greenwich High School Cardinal Field improvements, we were able to reduce our ask from $17.6 million to $8.4. We are focusing on the bleachers and access there and full site design. We don't know yet if we have, how much we have from private donors, but we believe it would be a considerable amount of money. But we just don't know what that number is yet. Western Middle School is not off the table, but we will not know the cost until probably March or April, how much it's going to cost to remediate that field. So we would then go back and ask for an interim if when we get that number. Central Middle School, as far as I'm concerned, can be deferred at this point in time. We have $13.8 million remaining in the district's maintenance line, not maintenance line, but maintenance projects. We really need to protect the $1 billion worth of assets that we have, and using that $13.8 million to do so is one of my highest recommendations. We also, we had a couple speaker about talking about a new piano for the Performing Arts Center. We were able to work with some people that had raised almost $50,000, a little over $50,000 actually. And the piano is not going to cost $175. It's actually going to be about $155. So that's why we included it in the budget. So it's going to cost us $111,000, we believe. And that's what I have for you.
Ms. Dayton.
I am absolutely thrilled to be moving ahead with our master facilities plan with the first phase of design on 3 elementary schools which share similar features. I'm also so proud of this board for augmenting security at the high school given the events nationally. That should be our very highest priority. I'd like to gauge support from members of the board on Cardinal Stadium lighting. It's not included in this phase, which is $8.4 million. We have documentation from prior files that Dr. Francis will expand on. I don't believe it's going to cost as much as $1.2 million to do the lighting. And by the lighting, I mean just the replacement of the lighting fixtures without disturbing the ground, without disturbing anything else, to make sure that our lights have the kind of intensity with lesser scope that can actually serve the neighborhood better than our current lights do, to bring it up to modern standards of technology while also making it better for our surrounding neighbors when we have lighted practices. So is there any support on the board for increasing that budget line?
Dr. Francis.
So I pulled out my very thick SST packet from the days of SST meetings, and this is clearly an older proposal. It's from April of 2017, and I mean, I can't say that I researched it myself, but from the consultant that we had at the time, actually we have two numbers that they gave us related to the lighting there for 50 FC foot candles, which is really what's recommended. One was for maintaining the existing poles at 400,000. The new was with new poles, they gave us at 500,000 and that includes the electrical infrastructure, the engineering, and the upgrades of the light and so forth. It would be in that range. Having said that, I actually had another question, which is, this seems like a great opportunity to ask someone to donate. I would think there's probably a fair number of people who want to do that, but I should know this by now, but do we put it in our budget and then try to get the money? Or do we not put it in our budget and try to get the money?
Ms. Dayton, do you want to respond?
Well, it has to be in the budget. It has to be in the budget because this is the document we sell to the BET and the RTM on what we want to accomplish. I would, if there's support, make a motion to increase it from 8.4 to an even 9, hoping that that is sufficient. You know, based on our past documentation, I don't know why the price would double in the short time since we looked at the files. So I'm open to any kind of feedback from Mr. Mayo or anyone else.
Mr. Sheriff?
I'm sorry, let me finish this off. I have something.
All right, just on this, while I am supportive, because if you look at the lights, some of them aren't working, keeping the poles off and the like. I don't love doing this at this point because we basically haven't put it out there. We haven't given anybody the opportunity to comment on it. That's my concern, but I think it's a viable thing to be discussing. Certainly we've actually accepted other items such as the scoreboard that were not in our budget, right, but that we would hope to do at some point. So I think just putting it out there in the public, trying to get some discussion on it, I think is a worthwhile venture. But I don't know that I'd support voting on it tonight. Ms. Stowe?
That seems like the right approach, Peter. It gives people to comment on it, but also incentivizes those who perhaps have extra money lying around to come out and tell us they'd like to help us out with the lights.
Mr. Mayo?
We'd also need to get a better number than what we have right now. We have an old number from school start time, I believe, and is that it? And then we have
It came from a consultant engineer that gave us an official proposal and had it as part of the proposal.
And then we have a number from KG&D that they gave us.
That's a better number.
Yeah.
So we don't know what type of lights we're talking about yet, so we probably need to do a little more research into that. But if you ever played on that field at night and tried to catch a football coming out of the dark, you know that we probably do need an upgrade in the lights.
Mr. Sheriff?
Just by way of information, Ralph, that proposal came from the Board of Education's retained lighting engineer who evaluated everything, and they were asked as part of their scope of work by, I don't know if Dan was here yet, he probably caught it in flight. It is the engineer Maloney room that the Board of Education always uses. So, and these people were asked to provide a full-blown proposal budgetary estimate, which is where that number came from. The KG&D number is, I don't know, that's some architect's guesstimate.
So I'm just thinking that might be newer technology now than
well, that's what that was. That thing is the latest technology. To Jennifer's point, though, Jennifer, I agree with you. I have a bigger concern about all this capital and asking $8.5 million that I'm about to raise. But I agree with you. This thing is a tactical, strategic thing, a tactical thing that fits to our strategic vision. That is something that can be done and done quickly without a lot of fanfare. It seems to me sometimes we should think about crossing the street before we think about going to the moon. So, can we finish this item off?
Dr. Francis.
So I seem to have stacks of things that I saved, so that if there's anything that's helpful in terms of the studies that were already done and the numbers that were gathered, and not that everyone can see this, but this, for example, is the lighting study that they did, and you can see there's not only inadequate light, but dramatic variation within the field, which is as big, if not a bigger problem, when you're going from one, an area that's well lit to poorly lit, within a few yards of each other. So there's no doubt in my mind that we need to do it. I'm just not sure exactly the best timing, how you get it done, and how you get it paid for. But I totally agree that's something we should be doing.
Anything else on lights? No, there's no motion. She was just looking for comment. No motion. All right, Mr. Chair.
I'm trying to follow along in this capital budget. And I just as a reminder to those of us on the board who sometimes we see so much stuff, we forget what actually happened. Okay. KG&D presented its report. We went through a prioritization exercise to prioritize capital projects. The board prioritized those projects and accepted it at its June 14th or 15th meeting. Since then, we've had no board agenda item with a further discussion on the capital plan. The capital plan so the last action we took relating to the capital plan was on that date in June. Okay, just by way of remembering, in that meeting, we were given a prioritization, we gave a ranking, we talked about the ranking, this is at Glenville School, for those of you who don't remember, and then we approved that ranking. That ranking essentially prioritized our projects, and it had a schedule with it. Okay, we sent that schedule forward saying, these are the priorities in which we want to see these projects. Just by way of reminder, the good news is JC, OG, and Riverside were number 1, 2, and 3. JC and OG were tied, and Riverside was number 2. But just in terms of schedule, Riverside is not until in the document that we went over, and I can see my lawyer friend over here quickly scurrying for documents, is just by way of reminder, the project for Riverside's not till 2024 or 5. So we're talking about doing a design study right now, which probably isn't much money, but be aware it's a project that's 5 years in the future. So that's one thing that we should be thinking about. The second thing it said in there is at GHS, we prioritized, they presented 5 phases, and they were based on academic need. We always talk about academic need. What's the academic need? Phase A1 is essentially the security and the commons, the new learning commons, because we're going to be short classrooms. To your point, Dr. Francis, this has been called out to us, by the way, in the capacity planning, and the enrollment projection that we just commissioned within the last 12 months. So the architects have told us we're not going to have enough space. We were told that. And if we don't get at this, they said in their statement, by the way, phase A1 is, quote, is scheduled early in the plan as the increased enrollment is expected to arrive by 2020. So for some reason, we don't have that in our capital plan. And then it said phase 1A was for the entrance lobby, security, new learning commons, and convert the library to classrooms. 1B was student center and mezzanine. Phase 2 was PE and Cardinal Stadium. So somehow we took Cardinal Stadium and jumped it all the way up in front of this plan that we were given by the architects ahead of this capacity and this other security enhancements that we need at the high school. So the only reason I'm pointing this out is I suppose we can make any decision we want. I'm just a little puzzled because it seems to me that capital plan that's proposed right here doesn't match what we heard from our architects, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting, did capacity planning, did all these meetings to give them input and guidance with our prior superintendent, no offense, Ralph. We laid out this plan, approved it, and now we have before us something else. So I'm great. Personally, I'm all great with the $13 million in maintenance. I can sign off on that today because that was really clear to me. They called that out as we're not spending enough. 8 to 10 is too low, and we need to make that an issue and make people aware of that in town. But the rest of these priorities don't seem right. And the one that's troubling me is we've known about the security thing, and all we're talking about for next year is $75,000 for a study. That doesn't sound like urgency to me around security. So I think we need one more bite at this apple, and I would encourage us to discuss this tonight, but I don't think we should be voting on this tonight. It's not ready for prime time because it doesn't line up to the decisions that this board has previously made and never amended. Mr. Mayo.
Just to respond a little bit, Peter, we were asked to go back and reprioritize the capital plan at a previous budget meeting, so that's by us, by the board. So that's why you're getting this presentation. I mean, I do agree with you. We do need more space at Greenwich High School. We should be moving forward on that and other things, but in order to prioritize, these are the items we came up with.
Well, was it prioritized meaning cut, or I don't know what prioritize in this context seems like you're talking about. Prioritize means reduction. I understand the board said it's 51 million the right number. I hadn't thought that would have resulted in taking things not lined up to the master plan and just moving them around out of order. Is that we as a board asked you to do that? I don't remember that. I must have missed that meeting.
You asked us the board asked us to prioritize the major projects.
Oh, but following the master plan or not following the master plan?
The major projects that we had presented, the original 51 million proposal, you asked us to go back and prioritize to come back with a different amount.
That sounds like a reduction to me as opposed to the order in which they need to be done. But okay, I think we need another bite at this apple, but maybe I'm alone in this. Ms. O'Neill.
I was kind of puzzled too when I looked at the order of things, and I thought the entrance to the high school because of security was a priority before the elementary schools. And the elementary schools, you talk about design plans, are we talking about ed specs? And if we're doing that and we have them, some projects not coming due until 2025, and you're going to do ed specs in the next year or two, God knows what the ed specs that the state is going to require, what changes could come about, not only in so many areas. So I'm not so sure that we're going to save money by doing the ed specs to all those buildings. And do we have a template for doing that? Because certainly when we did New Lead, we looked around and we looked back and said, we looked back at Glenville, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. Now the state has guidelines, but I don't think we like them because they asked for more generous space than we wanted to do at New Lead. So I think we need to look at, do we want to do all those ed specs now? Shouldn't the high school security part come first? And in terms of capacity at the high school, have we taken into consideration when, with the new Sandwich High School comes into play? That probably is going to have an impact on our enrollment, and we might not need all the space that we think we're going to need. So those are my comments about the capital project. That
Dr. Francis.
So I think factually, yes, we voted on it in that sense, and that's absolutely true. I think there had been discussions about whether it would make sense to bundle things for the elementary school, and I think there was a bit of back and forth in terms of, do we want to space things out, trying to make the spending more even? Do we want to, bunch things up more in the beginning because we need it and potentially do, longer term financing? So I think there was some back and forth in terms of how would we be able to finance it, and thus would we change things around time-wise based on that. But in terms of our request for reprioritization, I don't think the space, the capacity issue at the high school was in the first round that we got in the capital plan. So that's not something that changed. That wasn't there. So that wasn't a response to our asking for reprioritization. It wasn't there. And so I don't think that was there. So, you know what, I mean, if you guys say to me, and I mean, I was anxious about this, looking at it, we don't have time to do it anyway, then I think we can stop arguing about whether it's following our plan or not, because if it's not realistic, well, it doesn't matter what we voted on. Let's be realistic. If we think it's really an issue and we need to address it, and we can, then let's have the conversation and do it. And if we can't, let's make sure that making do in some way is reasonable. I mean, that we don't just kind of end up with these kids there and no space. So I just think that's important for us to figure out.
Ms. Dayton.
There were extensive conversations between Ms. O'Donnell and KG&D on whether or not we should group together 3 elementary school design studies in one go, and that was satisfactorily answered by our consulting firm that it would save significant amount of money if we did it that way, because they have similar features. Number 2, we are at risk for being out of compliance with ADA in all 3 schools. This is something we cannot allow to continue. We cannot put capacity at the high school above our legal liability. So ADA access on the bleachers at the high school and in the 3 elementary schools should remain our priority.
Ms. O'Neill.
No, I'm going to essentially make a motion that we take this capital budget, defer it, refer it to the budget committee to work with the administration to prepare it properly and bring it back at the next meeting. I think the BET doesn't need it before Christmas. They're probably not going to look at it. So I think there's too many open issues. This ed spec is an open issue. The capacity is an open issue. The prioritization is an open issue. I think there's probably enough questions on the table. This is not ready for a vote at prime time, and I think it should be handled by the, we have a budget and finance committee of the board. Let them do their work.
So point of order, do you want to make your motion now or you want to wait?
I'll make the motion now. I move that we postpone this item, postpone the consideration of the proposed 2019-20 capital budget to the next meeting, and it be referred to the budget committee of the board for revision and reconsideration in collaboration with the administration.
Is there a second? Ms. O'Neill seconds. Discussion on the motion? Dr. Francis?
Can someone give me a sense of what they think of the need for timeliness on this?
So I'll give you a sense. We are presenting our joint budget with the first selectman to the town on January 24th. Our meeting, I believe, is January 17th. Would only give the first selectman 7 days basically to create a consolidated budget. I think that's kind of tight.
Yeah, but we told.
Did we not recently meet with the first selectman and tell him that it was okay that we would deliver our own capital budget directly to the BET? That's what he believes.
No, that's not what he believes. Maybe he didn't read the note that I shared with the board. What we've done with the first selectman is we told him when the superintendent presented prioritization, we would share that. When we were done our work here and when we voted on our capital budget, we would share that. And at that point, he would make his proposal to the BET. He makes the combined proposal. He has the ability to recommend or not recommend our capital items. We have the ability to ask the BET to reinstate any of those items that he decides not to move forward with. But the timing is very tight to say we're going to vote on this on the 17th and we're going to turn around and be prepared, give him enough time to review and be prepared to present the following week. Ms. Olson.
So I guess just to be completely clear, what specifically would we be hoping to accomplish within that time? So referring it back to the finance, and then can you just outline for me what you're looking to accomplish in that amount of time? I do think they're already working quite diligently, our committee, but how exactly, what's the goal here, the ultimate goal?
Mr. Chair, that's directed to you.
Yeah.
My goal is a budget that has resolved all these open questions. Ms. Dayton, as an example, is a strong advocate of these bundling. She'd have an opportunity to make that. I think there's also some questions regarding prioritization. I think Dr. Francis clearly asked the question of why are we not getting on with getting capacity? We've known about that problem. If the administration thinks they got a plan for it, terrific, then we don't need to put it in the budget. To me, there's a lot of open questions here that I would think we would spend some time vetting, and then, but if you guys want to have this as a full board, we could do that too. I don't care when it is. I'm just trying to figure out how to get it done. By the way, there are many times we have approved our capital budget in January. I've been on the board a long time. This is not abnormal.
I've been on the board 5 years. I can recall one time. Ms. Davey.
The Budget Committee did have a meeting prior to this prioritization, prior to anything. The Budget Committee, including Mr. Schur, Ms. Rabin, Ms. Dayton, Ms. Stowe, met. Any of those members could have raised any issues at the time the Budget Committee was prepping for this vote, in which we clearly indicated to Mr. Mayo the direction we wanted to go with the capital budget. There were extensive discussions. I remember at that meeting we talked about, for example, dropping the fields out of the budget, and that was carried over in his recommendation of the board. So it was an impactful meeting, it was an influential meeting, and we all had that opportunity. And I feel blindsided at this point that now all of a sudden questions are being raised that haven't been raised in the past.
One meeting on that.
Dr. Francis.
So I think I'm comfortable with voting on this, but I would feel much more comfortable if someone could explain to me separately, not too distant future, why we feel like we're under capacity at the high school and how we think we're going to manage that. So if it's just that we have, 80% of our classrooms only are being used at any given time, and teachers are just going to have to use more classrooms, so we're going to go up to 100% use of classrooms. Whatever explanation is, I just don't feel good as a board member having a document that tells me we're going to be 200 places short, that we should do renovation, and that we're just kind of not doing it. So I think as long as there's an explanation that seems feasible, I'm okay with that, but I think it would be nice to have that soon.
So the motion before us is to postpone to the next meeting. Let's keep our conversation with that. Mr. Neal. All right. Okay, well, that's outside of this process. All right.
To do this,
So,
I'll withdraw the motion.
you want to take a vote on it, or do you want to withdraw? Your call.
I don't know. Sounds like nobody wants to do it.
So I'll withdraw it. Go ahead. Okay.
Okay, so back to the original motion to accept the revised proposed capital proposal. Ms. Lehman, you have a question?
The deferral of the Central Middle School's fields disturbed me somewhat in the fact that they were such an urgent item for so long, and now we're deferring them. I wanted to know where we are. There's a study being done on those fields, and when is that due?
The plan was to begin you're referring to the Central Middle School feasibility study. So the plan was to begin kicking it off with an initial communications, which we're still working on. And then we'll begin testing.
So when do you think this, and what is this kickoff going to involve? Because we've already got,
I think she's asking about the central fields. I think you already.
a central study.
Yeah, the Central Middle School feasibility, right.
No, the fields. Make sure we're talking about the same thing. Talking about the fields.
I think we're speaking the same language,
So,
Laura.
okay. Yeah, it's a feasibility study, and it involved testing the site to identify, what material we have there. And we wanted to begin the process with a communication out to all those that, would be interested. So we had started with a communications project plan, and we are working with the consultants, whose name escapes me at the moment, but we're working with consultants to then begin that testing following our initial communications.
But whatever we do, though, we're going to have to test. So there shouldn't be a delay in the testing, right?
We just want to be sure. The testing is quite significant, so we do want to be sure that we're properly communicating to those that are in the area and at the school.
So do we have any idea when this kickoff is going to be?
We don't. At the moment, I don't know. Within the next month, hopefully.
Okay. You'll let us know what the plan is?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayo?
Yeah, I believe the whole field study was going to disrupt Central's use of the field in the fall, so that's why we deferred it a little bit so that we could get in there without disrupting anything going on with their interscholastic or intramural program.
All right, other questions or comments on the capital budget? All right, so the motion before us, let me go back to my cover sheet, that was a good idea. The motion before us is to approve the revised proposal, the FY 19-20 capital budget of $26,012,281. Okay, further discussion, all those in favor? All opposed? It passes 7-1. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the proposed food services budget. So, Mr. Mayor, your name's on that. All right, do we have a motion to accept? Do we have a motion for that? Do you want to make a motion for that one? Can we get a motion? All right, let's go.
I'd like to make a motion for the approved, the recommended budget on the 2019-2020, $4,294,103 ordinary expense / $4,077,523 revenue food services budget.
We have a second? Dr. Francis, thank you. Discussion, Laura, maybe you want to tell us a little about what this is? Do you want to tell us about food services? Yeah, all we've got is a cover sheet, so. Right, the information is in the budget book, but maybe can you give us the highlight here?
Sure. Hold on. Okay, so food services, we have a couple of different things going on, but this year, is the first year that we now have a positive fund balance. And so as we move into 20, what we'll be looking to do is try to improve our bottom line to bring it to more of a break-even situation. So we are exploring some other opportunities for improving that bottom line, but the budget that you're seeing in front of you is a reflection of trends of prior years going forward. So we'll continue that work throughout the year with the support of our Food Services Committee.
All right, discussion? Mr. Neal?
Is there money in the budget to put out an RFP to finally study the food service and put this thing to bed?
There's not money in the budget to do the RFP. It's going to be a collaborative effort of the Food Services Committee and the administration to do that work. We had, if you may recall, is that not the question? I'm sorry.
Question, I just didn't like the answer, sorry.
Oh, I agree with that. I would have liked to have some money to provide the support. It really is truly an area of expertise that we could have benefited from, but the work is being coordinated by administration with support of the committee.
I mean, I appreciate the sense of trying to be frugal about this, but this is one of the areas that I'm not so sure that as educators and whatever, that we have the expertise to do a study that could stand up to a lot of public scrutiny, and you know there's a lot of interest in this topic. So I think studying ourselves, I'm not so sure how
That's fair.
objective we can be.
I will add that what we have learned from meeting with our peer districts, and we did meet with 6 of them, that there is a state process. So not only do we have to abide by the school's RFP process, but we also have to get the RFP approved by the state, and they actually have a template for RFPs. So we do have a lot of good guidance already out there to follow. It will be a lot of work. It's a pretty hefty document, but.
So may I ask who's going to be involved in this, developing it?
The Food Services Committee, so it's an RTM member, BET member, Lauren Raven, myself, John Hopkins, and Ralph. Yeah.
Ms. Dayton.
Speaking for myself, 1 out of 8, I don't want to see a study of any kind. No study. 0. We've done 2 studies internally already. Okay, and I can get you the paperwork if you need it. But a 3rd study done internally, no. We just need to send out an RFP for outsourcing. That's all. That's all we need to do, send out the RFP.
Ms. Raven.
Yeah, and that's our steps. And it was in last year's budget where there was money in the budget to hire a consultant to do the RFP, and we all nixed it. And we have a committee that's willing to do the work. There are templates, there are best practices. So we didn't think that we needed to invest the money to develop the RFP. I agree with Ms. Deaton. There's nothing to study. We had the survey, we've had the reports. This is a financial and a quality of food decision.
Other discussion? Mr. Chair.
I got one question. Is this, you asked a question about money for a study. This isn't a part of this food services budget item per se, right? So this is totally on the side. And then, when did we cut out the money to hire somebody to run an RFP cycle? Can you just clarify that, Ms. Raven? I don't remember doing that, but maybe I did.
It was in, I'm gonna get my fiscal years messed up. It's in this budget, what we're living and spending.
1920.
Yes. We did not
18,
put,
19.
we didn't put it forward.
That was proposed and we cut it.
We'd have to go back to the minutes. I don't recall like how it started and ended, but we did not support that expenditure. The thought was to do it internally.
So Donald, do you want to add anything?
The consultant was my idea, honestly. It was, I'm very familiar with the fact that the food services area, does require a certain level of expertise. And, when I first joined, the first thing I heard was we need to go out and issue an RFP. So I think, the RFP consultant, I know, came out of my suggestion that we hire somebody to help us through this process because we need to protect ourselves. We need to make sure that that RFP is written properly so that we solicit the right bids. But in speaking with colleagues, there was some suggestion that we might benefit from meeting with peer districts. I did greatly benefit from meeting with them. It was really insightful, and we did change our strategy. In terms of it being in the budget, I'm not aware that it was in the budget. I came here during that fiscal year, and we would have had to find the money somewhere, somehow. So I don't think it was earmarked specifically because we would have had to do a budget transfer to fund it.
All right. All right, any other discussion on this item? For further discussion, Ms. Dayton?
Let's see how to phrase this. Maybe there's a difference in terminology and that's where we're getting hung up, possible. When I say I don't want to study, I mean I don't want anything like what we did in 2017 or 2015. I don't want an internal study of what are our options, what are other districts doing. Not that kind of study. We just want the RFP to be sent out. Are we talking about the same thing when we use the term study, or are we talking about 2 different things?
I don't know what study is actually referring to. Our project plan is to, at the same time, side by side, through 2020, to work on developing the draft RFP and getting that out, and alongside with it, try to continue to boost or improve our bottom line so that we are continuing to contribute to the fund balance and decreasing the subsidy that we get from the town to support the program. So we have to do those two alongside one another. I'm not sure what the study is referring to.
Just two things. One of those studies was external. It was actually done by Hanover, I believe. And I actually found that very insightful, and it was a lot of looking at peer districts. One thing I know from talking to board members in other peer districts is this is a money loser. It's never meant to be a money maker. We are feeding children who cannot be fed at home. That is what the federal school lunch program is. I would love to be able to say we break even on it, but we don't. And the closer we get, the better. But I don't know that outsourcing is going to be the answer to that question, but I'll be interested to see what we get back in the RFP. With that, any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, the motion on the table is to approve the recommended budget for 2019-2020 of $4,294,103 ordinary expense and $4,077,523 revenue. All those in favor? Passes 8-0. Thank you very much. All right, going back to my agenda. We are now at the policy second read. Ms. O'Neill, do you want to make a motion to put those on the table? And as you do, I know there's one that you wanted to take out, so I don't know if you want to exclude that when you make your motion.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the policies put before you with the exception of policy 4112, which we'll take out, which is the appointment of certified staff. All the other policies you have seen. I have sent you 2 corrections or edits that I received. I sent them to you again today because I know you got it.
Dr. Francis, second. All right, sorry.
So one of them was a policy 4117.4, personnel certified non-renewal suspension. And we deleted a line, the timeline in which this process shall take place will be determined by the agreement between the Board of Education and the Greenwich Educational Association. So that line came out. And then, and also at the end of the paragraph on the second page, delete the Board of Education accepts as a guide for certified staff the Connecticut Educational Association Code of Ethics. So those 2 come out. We abide by the Code of Ethics for the Connecticut State Code of Ethics, not the CEA's Code of Ethics. So those are the 2 corrections on, whoops, sorry, I got those 2 policies mixed up. So the first one is fine. We just want to take out 4117.4, take out about the timeline will be determined by the agreement with the Board of Education. That was a correction for that one. And the correction for the Certified Code of Ethics is just saying that we don't follow the Connecticut Code of Ethics. We follow, we don't follow, oops, it's late. The board accepts as a guide for certified staff the Connecticut Educational Code of Ethics. So those are the 2 edits to those that were received by the board. I don't know if anybody else had any other comments.
So discussion on those, and we'll take up the hiring one separately, but then discussion on the ones that are before us. All right, all those in favor of accepting the amended policies, thank you very much. I want to thank the PGC committee for continuing to push forward with these. You guys have made amazing progress. On 4112, just because it was here and I do want to mention it, I know it came back to us and it still had the it's this or that. I hope PGC will take this up again and look for some middle ground because I feel like we're saying it's either we're interested in all certified staff or the superintendent is all certified staff, and I know personally I don't agree with either one of those views. So I'm hoping you'll take it up. I'm happy to provide comments at a meeting or in writing or whatnot. Dr. Francis.
We've taken it up, and I just think that there's a philosophical issue that I think needs to be a more general board discussion.
So with that, would anybody have an objection if we added that discussion to our January 17th meeting?
I don't know how much stuff we have on there.
Just note that. Ms. Dayton?
I had suggested in the prior month when this came to us that we should discuss it as a full board in a retreat setting, and I don't know if your proposed date in January is a board professional development session or a regular meeting. I don't want to take it up in a regular business meeting. I'd love to take it up in the lighthouse work.
All right, so maybe what we'll do is mark it as a TBD, and then we'll look at the agenda and see what we can do. But I think the idea of taking it up altogether is probably a good one. Dr. Francis?
Yeah, I mean, generally our philosophy had been things that were not urgent and maybe required a bit more thinking. We have a future tougher issues list. So unless someone feels it's particularly urgent that we do this, I'm happy to put it in that list. I have the file, I have those hot topics, and we can definitely put it in a hot topic list if we want.
I think this one's been swimming around for a while, so it's worthy of taking up together as soon as we can. Okay, with that, we will move on to the approval of the Greenwich High School Boys Swim Team extended field trip to Aruba, where I'm hoping to be asked to be a chaperone. Can we get a motion? Yes, I'll make the motion to approve the GHS Boys Swim Team extended field trip to Aruba in February 29th. From the teacher down at the end, Ms. Olson, discussion. Yeah, I'd still like to be a chaperone. That's about the only thing I'm going to say. Aruba's lovely. I have not been anywhere warm in a while. That's the only discussion I have. All right, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the item? 7-0, thank you very much. All right, next up is the summer school report. So we've deferred this before. We're going to try to take this up tonight. Why don't we put a motion on the table to accept the report, and then we can talk about whether we need to actually vote on the action. So Ms. Staton makes a motion to accept the report. Is there a second? Dr. Francis? We're just accepting that they've given us the report. We're not accepting the recommendations. We're going to have a discussion, and if somebody wants to make a motion on those recommendations or have them change them, then we can take that up at that time. So with the motion on the table, maybe Dr. Tarabillo, maybe you'd like to give us some highlights.
I would be very happy to give you some highlights because I'm very pleased with the outcomes of our summer school programming that we changed last spring with Lori Elliott and her academic team, and I am quite pleased. The programming continues to address the strategic plan strategies of the academic, personal, and interpersonal capacities. Some of the highlights from the report, I believe, are the students who attended summer school were regular education students in grades K through 8 who had a history of low academic attainment, didn't reach their expected growth, or were in need of social, emotional, or behavioral intervention, and they were identified and recommended to attend summer school. The regular education students who wanted to accelerate their learning and or increase their credit attainment towards graduation or recover credits, and students who were identified through their PBTs to attend summer school as their extended school year program were included in our summer school programs as mandated by federal and state laws. A total of 900 students attended, and the chart on page 3 in the report shows you the categories of reasons why students attended. The impact of the newly implemented literacy program was measured by comparing those students who registered and attended summer school versus those students who did not register on their fall 2018 STAR reading benchmark growth. The growth refers to the ECWA growth framework, where student growth is reported as high, expected, low, and unsatisfactory. Those who did not register for summer school and were recommended served as the control group. Jen Lau and I had looked at that, and what we were looking for was a minimum of 10% of the students who were in that group would have high growth at the end of that summer programming, as measured by the fall STAR. As you can see by the chart on page 5 of the report, the new literacy programming had positive outcomes for all groups of students who registered for summer school. General education students and the students in all 4 of the categories, the special education, free or reduced lunch, English language learners, and those students who had 2 or more high needs, had a higher percentage of high growth than the control group. So that was extremely exciting. The high growth indicates that the elementary students exceeded their expected reading performance after completing summer school. 15% of the registered students had high growth on their fall 2018 STAR reading, compared to 6% of those students who were recommended and did not register. The new tool that was used in the instructional program that was developed and designed was using the tool Lexia. Lexia is centered in a personalized approach to learning that gives students more control over time, place, path, and pace of their learning. It has teacher-led instruction, and that was combined with an interactive, user-centric experience that supported the varying cognitive abilities of all the students in those classes. 42% of the recommended students advanced 1 or more grade levels in reading during the summer program. 45% of the students who attended regularly advanced a grade, reinforcing the conclusion that regular attendance leads to greater benefits and outcomes. Even though some of the students did not advance a full grade level, they still made progress and advanced at least 1 level during the summer program and the Lexia program. Unfortunately, the middle school students didn't have any discernible growth benefits. However, they had similar fall STAR reading performance as the control group and as the district performed. So that was a little interesting. So the good news was they did not lose anything that they had learned in 2017-18. The extended year students also benefited from the new literacy programming. They advanced at least 1 or more Lexia levels at a rate close to the non-ESY students. And there's a chart on page 12 that you can look at, and you can see what that is. So it shows that regular attendance shows academic benefits. Unfortunately, only 56% of the recommended and registered students attended 25 or more days. Only the high school groups met the 75% target for regular attendance, and that probably had to do with earning credits. The summer school students who attended summer school for course advancement, acceleration, and enrichment clearly performed at high levels, as you can see with the charts. The students who did not recover credits had attendance issues. Those charts you can see on pages 13 through 17. The focus on literacy this year, the change in instruction and materials, and the outcome data show that those students who attended with regularity improved their literacy skills at the elementary level. The students had opportunities to write and practice their skills in both reading and writing. The elementary students were able to practice and transfer their literacy skills to math problem solving and NGSS science experiments and maintaining science notebooks. The summer school teachers worked very diligently on learning a new way of implementing the summer program for K-8 students. It was a challenge, and they deserve a lot of credit for supporting the students and ensuring they made progress over such a short period of time. To let you know the status from last year's recommendations, we did implement an elementary program for 6 weeks. We also explicitly designed a literacy program, and that was implemented. The transition program we looked at for rising 6th graders is still in progress. The review of the SOAR program is in progress because we want to make sure that those students complete this 9th grade year and we can see if there was any impact. And that the formal review of our summer school program will begin, will begin soon. The recommended actions that we bring to you tonight are that we continue to offer a 6-week program, as well as the advancement and acceleration credit recovery programming for secondary students. that we continue using the literacy focus with the new reading and writing program and resources that we introduced this past year, that we complete the SOAR review with the student outcomes of those 9th grade students, and that we really focus on consistent attendance for next year. We'd like to include a message in their invitation. We're going to contact the parents of those students who didn't attend with fidelity beginning in January to determine any barriers and solutions, and we'd like to develop some weekly incentives. So overall, I believe that the summer programming was quite successful and students did have positive outcomes. And I'm sorry I tripped over my words, but it's 9:15 and I've been up since 4, so I'm sorry for that.
And it's cold in here because we're saving money by not heating the building, I guess.
Yes, I still have my coat
Sorry
on.
about that. All right, Ms. O'Neill.
Do we know if the students who made these really amazing gains were able to sustain them through the coming year? Do we track these?
We will be tracking them, yes. That's ongoing. We haven't had the Next Star administration that'll happen in January.
So for the prior summer school years, have we been tracking those students as they advanced to the
No,
years?
we had not, but we have been, we started that for this year.
Okay. One other question, man. What kinds of weekly incentives would you be thinking about?
One suggestion was to give them some additional recess time on Friday afternoons. Another suggestion was to give them an activity to do that would be totally out of the box from any of the other activities that they've done during the week. We're still talking about them. We don't know exactly what they would be. We can also ask the kids what they think would be an activity.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Of the number of hours that there are in summer school, how many hours or how much time is involved in instruction as opposed to recess, lunch, and whatever, and gym?
The majority of the day is spent in instruction. I can give you that when I look at the schedule.
Okay.
I can get back to you. Oh, Lori?
4.5 hours of 6 hours of the day.
4.5 hours are spent on instruction. Thank you, Lori. Lori Mulligan is in the audience.
So I have pushed every time the summer school reports come up for a laser-like focus on the top of areas that we've recommended the kids for. So I'm thrilled to see literacy. I would love to see even more. I'm thinking about the videos we watched for the Lighthouse training and the student that made the significant growth during the school year in the summer, because it can be concentrated time and you have the right staff ratio to see that level of improvement. We're seeing some of it, not at the middle school level, but we're seeing some of it to see even more. So keep that focus. If they're there for reading, they really shouldn't be getting a whole lot of math. They should be reading intervention all the time.
Well, we do want to offer the math and the science because that's where they apply those literacy skills. They have to be able to read in order to be successful in math, any kind of level of math and science. So it was really exciting to see them be able to apply the skills that they were learning during that literacy and writing blocks, and then follow through in the other content areas. And it was extremely exciting, and they were excited about what they accomplished.
Ms. T.
I'm in full support of summer school, and the great progress we're seeing is magnificent. I want to zero in on the middle school math for a moment, and I want to put out a hypothesis to have it knocked down. We seem to have lower results there. Is it because many of those courses are bridge courses where parents are saying, I'd really like to accelerate my child, but they really don't deserve a different placement than the education system has designed for them? In other words, are those courses designed unrealistically to move a student into accelerated math that they're not prepared for, or is it simply that we need better curriculum, better instruction, and better attendance?
That's a very good question, and I would really have to go back and speak with the team and see what their experience has been over the years. I know that out of the bridge classes, the majority of the students did quite well, but I would have to go and look at data from the children who do the bridge class and the children that do the double jump. I can't answer that tonight, but I will look at it.
Any other discussion? All right, so the motion on the table is to accept the report. All those in favor? We're accepting the report. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Passes 701. Thank you very much, Dr. Carabillo. Dr. Francis.
I'm sorry, I just took a bite of my snack, but we just voted to approve the report, but there's accept the report, I'm sorry, but there's recommendations. Are we going to address that?
Well, those are recommendations of staff. As I read them, I don't see that there's any financial impact or staffing impact, so basically that's them administering the program. I think that's their role, not ours. All right, so next up is the BOE committee and liaison assignments. I'll make the motion since it's my document. I move to approve the 2019 Board of Education Committee and Liaison Assignments. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Dayton. Just discussion-wise, to let you know what the changes were, Dr. Francis is going to chair PGC and Mrs. O'Neill is staying on as a member. Let's see. PTA Council, Megan Olson is coming off the list, and it's just Jennifer Dayton. And then Distinguished Teachers, Lauren Rabin is coming off the list. She has served gloriously for way too long, and Megan will be continuing in that service. So those are the only changes other than the dates. Any discussion? Dr. Francis?
I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Barbara for spearheading this policy change, for the huge amount of work that she's put into it, to the great success we've had to date in terms of really getting a lot of work done, and to really putting a yeoman's amount of effort into it, and to make sure she realizes that I'm not completely letting her off the hook. She's still going to need to get some work done.
Yeah, I wasn't taking her off the committee, don't worry. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of accepting? Oh, Ms. Rabin.
Could we just get a little bit more specific on the BET liaisons? Which committees of the BET, or is
It's basically all of it, and I would hope, you know, that basically the three members are also on the budget committee, so whatever alignment you all decide is best. I know Barbara covers BET HR because she happens to enjoy that work. I bless her for it. She likes to know what's going on. But to the extent that you all can figure that out, maybe at your next budget committee, that would be great. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the 2019 committee liaison? Passes 8-0. Thank you. All right, next up is our 2019-2020, don't say it so, Board of Education meeting calendar. So can we get a motion to accept the meeting calendar? Anybody want to make a motion? You guys are really shy and quiet. All right, I'll make the motion to approve the 2019-2020 Board of Education meeting calendar. Is there a second? Ms. Stowe? Fewer? Yeah, no, I'm afraid it's not fewer. It mirrors this year. Any comments, questions, discussion? We've seen these dates before. All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor? By raising your hand. 8-0, thank you very much. All right, next up, this one's going to take a little bit of explanation, is the 2020-2021 school calendar. This will be the year with no snow days.
Yeah.
All right, so can we get a motion to, the motion is actually on the cover sheet. Anybody want to make the motion? Ms. Stowe, thank you.
I'd like to make the motion to approve option 1 of the 2021 school calendar.
Is there a second? Ms. O'Neill, discussion, Mr. Mayo.
Yes, the calendar you see before you is, the changes is just the dates for the elementary teacher conferences in December. So that was the major change from the last time we presented this at our last meeting. Other than that,
I do know we're probably going to see the 2019-2020 calendar again because there's an issue with the primary that we're going to have to pick up at some point. Is there any discussion on the 2020-2021 school calendar? Hearing none, all those in favor? 8-0, thank you very much. Next up, budget transfers. So can we get a motion to approve the budget transfers? Dr. Francis?
I move to accept the budget transfers.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Olson, thank you. Mr. Scherer has a question.
I just want to be really clear about this. So this is transferring $220,000. I guess those are more to special education outside tuition payments, yes? No, is that what that is?
Yes.
And then this is to transfer, I guess, another 42,000 to more transportation for sped, is that right?
Yes, but that actually has to do more with, I don't actually know why it's that.
I'm just reading the document, so I'm just asking the question of what is it? Because it seems like all of these transfers are $564,000 to support sped. That's what it says, right?
Yes, so item number 2 is specific to the extended school year. However, transfer number 3, which is the most significant item, is simply a reallocation of budgeting. As you know, we got the funds from town, the private portion that came over from town, and so
What is private portion?
The private schools transportation, and we changed the allocation method by which we used to bill the actuals to them, and so just because of the change in that allocation method, we needed to move monies around within the within the transportation program.
And why is it being, sped had its own, if I'm not wrong, sped had its own transportation network. That was what we've always done, right? So the conversation always was the conversation when we did start time was there were 3 separate bus networks, one for private, one for public, one for sped. And then when we had school bus consultants in here, they came in and talked about, we had lots of conversations about opportunities to optimize because we were running 3 separate networks. And there was some work done to do some of that, but some of it couldn't be done, right? So that's why I'm puzzled by increase in transportation sped, because the one that we always optimized in that project was the private and the public. We weren't touching sped.
Dr. Francis.
So 2 things. One is, I'm not sure I would say they were completely separate, because I think it was, as I understood it, you do a run that would go to a public school, and then maybe you do a run afterwards.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but they weren't sharing kids on buses.
Right, no, that's true. The here, it just seems to me it's not increasing transportation for sped, because it's coming from transportation from sped and going to transportation for sped. It's all within transportation
Well, it
for
says here
sped.
transportation of pupils public decrease, increased transportation sped 304. That's why I'm trying to understand what came out of one network's budget and is going to another network's budget. I realize it's revenue neutral. I'm trying to understand what happened that all of a sudden the sped network needed another $300,000 of transportation. But if that's not what this is,
we do have additional buses in SPED as well, but this is largely because of the reallocation. I'm trying to remember here. I know we are now doing it based on the number of routes. I'm just trying to remember how SPED factored into that formula.
Ms. Reardon.
Okay, so that's specifically bus by bus count, by
Ms.
buses
Reardon.
used for special education.
Could we go back to transfer number 1? In SPED, what is gas for heating? That we budgeted $120,000 that we don't need.
So that's the gas for the district-wide heating. It's our utilities, basically, our utilities budget. When Ms. Ford identified the need to fund additional monies to the out-of-district line, we really had to look district-wide to figure out where we could identify savings.
So, but what are you heating in SPED?
It's not in SPED, it's in our utilities budget. It's in the facilities program, 89 is facilities.
Right, but basically resulting in an increase to the SPED budget
Correct.
by $120,000.
Right.
To cover specific costs, as opposed to last year to cover the cost. You looked primarily within the SPED budget first before we ended up with.
So it's a little different because we did it at the end of the year. Now we're trying to do this up front, and I realize this is a change in practice. We're looking up front, and we're seeing that we have identified savings in utilities because we have a company that does forecasting for us. So this is a legitimate savings that we're anticipating at this time, and that would be the right source of funding to use to fund this overage right now.
Ms. Stowe.
So you're transferring 220 and you're basically saying that you have like 380 to go or something, is that right? And so you have to try to go find that over the next 6 months, okay.
We do.
Got it.
I guess my 2 cents, please try to find it in the special education budget, because we are continuing to increase that number, and every year when we're increasing it, it makes it harder to increase it the next year. So, my 2 cents. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of accepting the transfers, raise your hand. All those opposed, passes 8-0. Thank you very much. All right, next up is the financial and staffing report. Can we get a motion to accept the financial and staffing report? Dr. Francis, thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Stowe? All right, Ms. O'Donnell.
We're seeking your approval for the financial report for month ended November 25th. The area of concern is what we just discussed, which was special education.
So I've got a discussion item on the CIP closeout process. Thank you. We're starting to get that granularity we were looking for. I know it's been a pain, but it also has pointed out some stuff to me. I know you've taken off 27 items so that they're 100% off the list, which is great. Anytime they're off 100%, boot them. First up, FY 2014, there's 4 lines for furnishings, about $1 million. Can you explain to me how we have 4 lines for furnishings and $1 million that are at 0%? I had to zoom in on my computer.
Yeah, I have to be honest, that one, it doesn't look familiar. I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that.
I guess I'd ask, maybe you want to comb through this next time. We could even call this out as a special item, because I think we really do need to take a deeper dive on these capital items. There are a couple that have no percentage. Well, I don't know if that's exactly true. There are a lot of them at 99, so that may be just paperwork, but it would be good to get a real sense of what's real and what's not. If there's money from 2014, $1 million that's sitting out there, either we should spend it as we say we were going to spend it, or we need to revert it to the town. It just seems like a lot of money to be going nowhere. Other questions, comments? Ms. Dayton.
Line 119 in plumbing? I'm only asking this because of the 3 incidents this year. I may be off base, but it says water service and distribution, and then if you go over to the far column, 0%. Is this in any remote way related to any of the 3 incidents that we've experienced this year?
No.
Okay, so what does this mean?
So this is specifically looking at the many of our valves throughout the building. They appear to be not in great shape. We would like the ability to have them replaced and also add additional valves. And when you add valves, you give yourself the ability to shut down service to a portion of the building should something happen, or if you just want to do work on a section of the building. So that's what we actually have done a number of these over the years, and so this is just part of that maintenance, this type of program. So that's what this is. In this particular case, they may still be doing the engineering on it, but no, this is different. This is specific to valves.
Mr. Sherwood, going to talk plumbing.
I think that went flying by a little fast. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lori. One of the issues in these leaks we've had is quickly identifying where we can shut off the water. So I guess I don't know. I guess for someone to tell me that this has nothing to do with the leaks, but it's to put valves at various places in plumbing so we can shut it off. Well, that's exactly what we needed with the leaks, was a way of quickly finding places to shut it off. So, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, there's 2 things going on with this. One is that some of the valves that we have are old and crusty and are not really working that well. And then the other things going on, you want to shut off water. You don't want to shut off water to the entire building, so you want to have it in different places where you can shut off. So if something's going on in part of the building, you can still shut it off so the rest of the building still has access to water. So that's what's going on here. We were able to shut off the water, and the mechanical room was an issue, but we were able to shut off the water in the other 2 places pretty quickly, Pascop and PAC. The mechanical room was a whole different story. And yeah, we needed to find someone to help us shut off that water. So we had a Aquarian come in and shut off the water for us.
Lauren, do you want to go?
On page 10 and 11, there's 2 Cardinal Stadium feasibility study and constructions. One's line 82, the other one is line, I gotta make it bigger. So are they different things, line 35? Because there's still money to be spent in line 35. If they're not, if they are the same thing.
It's the same project, it's just that when we move into another phase of a project, the town gives us a new project number. So that was the line 30, whichever was the feasibility study. And then of course to continue the work from feasibility to design, we asked for another 200,000, which was the other line you referred to, 82. That's the 200, so we really should finish up the first feasibility, and then it really should just be one project number, but I don't set up the project codes.
Yeah, I did want to ask you about the new lab feasibility study. It's the first item on the list. Given that we're going to be in the building in, I'm hoping it's about 45 odd days, maybe a little bit longer, I don't understand how that's still open.
Which line item is that?
Number 1. I'm trying to knock off the oldest items first.
I would assume that was because it's part of the building committee's, one of the projects associated with the overall committee. If it's not, I'm happy to close it.
I don't think it is, but I think via we'll email to Steve Walker, we can probably get that resolved. I'm happy to lower your list if I can. No, I know, but it's also the number of items we have. Quite honestly, we're getting better at managing these, but always what to do. Ms. Stone.
I just want to make sure Bob Stacy's still awake. You ready? Okay. Can you update us on the project manager? Guess what? I was going to ask about it for Havemeyer or for helping, Dan and Lori. And also the headmaster at Greenwich High School. Can you update us on those two things?
Offer was made to a finalist for the project manager position. I haven't heard yet if he's accepted or not. Lori, do you know? Okay. They went back out and re-recruited, did interviews, and had a candidate. They were doing reference checks and made an offer, so I don't know if he's accepted that offer yet or not. The high school headmaster, the timeline had been sent to the board once in the past. We're doing parallel searches for both the high school headmaster and for the principal New Lebanon, or at Hamilton Avenue. And the advertisements and the postings went out a couple weeks ago, internal and external. We'll begin reviewing candidates on January 2nd. We've got a screening committee set up to look at the candidates. The advertisements just hit Education Week in a couple of the broader markets this week. So we had roughly 30 candidates for each position earlier this week. We anticipate we'll get more of an interest now that the Education Week ad is out, and they'll also do a blast to all 310,000 people who have electric or online accounts with Education Week as well to specifically target that broader group. So we anticipate interviewing, probably, I forget what the plan says off the top of my head, but late January, first interviews, and obviously the superintendent will, the permanent superintendent will be actively involved in the second phase and beyond, because that's who needs to hire their principals. You're welcome.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, the motion on the table is to approve the financial report. All those in favor? Passes 8-0. Thank you very much. Bringing us to our agenda planning. So, Kim, if I did this right, we have a TBD on discussing policy 4112. And I believe Mr. Mayor is going to tell us that we are going to need to put an interim appropriation out for the PAC at some point. So when did you want to do that?
Our town of Greenwich has a unique timeline, which I'm still getting used to. But anyway, in order to get on to the RTM agenda, we need to send them tomorrow by noon our estimate of what the damages are for the PAC and the gym. Now, we can do that by noon tomorrow, but that means you don't get to see it. So I can send that to you before I send it to the town clerk, and then, but that's what's going on right now. So it wouldn't matter if we voted on January.
It's the 10th, I think, is the next time we meet.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter if we voted on January 10th if we didn't get the item to the town clerk to be on the call list. Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. At the same time, is the first appropriation the one that the BET just cleared? That's going to go on to the call, correct? Okay, that's all set. So this is the second. I'm hearing from the end of the table, and I just want to make sure I'm hearing right from everybody. There's no problem with you submitting the document so long as you know that our board will be taking it up at the nearest future date. And yes, and you'll send that to us beforehand. All right, so are there any other items for agenda planning? Anything, Kim?
Well, I had that Ralph is going to bring to you on the 17th the project plan for the program inventory and outcomes audit, project plan for that. And then you mentioned adding the 2019-2020 school calendar for revision. Do you want to do that also on the 17th, or?
If you're going to be ready, sure.
I don't know.
Why don't you put that as a TBD, but let's aim for the 17th, because I see a shaking head from Dr. Carabello.
Okay.
Oh, and there's also a gift, I understand, from the Greenwich Athletic Foundation. I think it's something to do with streaming. That it should already be there. So. All right.
Yeah, that's already there.
All right. Mr. Sheriff?
I also, looking back at the KG&D document, you may not remember this, folks, we all agreed, it's in minutes and so on and so forth, that the board would take it up and approve the master plan. It was scheduled, in the documentation said we would do it in the fall. We didn't do that. I would hope we would put this on our agenda. I don't think it behooves us to put forward capital plans to the BET and to the RTM when we haven't even accepted our own long-term capital plan that, by the way, they asked for, which is why we did it in the first place. It doesn't seem real swift to go into those meetings and ask for it, and then we haven't even taken action on a plan. So I would hope that somebody would put that on the agenda, and we would do that. We'd have the discussion about it, finalize it, and approve it.
I guess I find that a little confusing because we did approve the prioritization, and by doing so, we basically approved the plan. But if you feel a second vote is necessary, we did that at our meeting in June 14th.
All we did was approve the prioritization. We never accepted or approved the plan.
Well, the real acceptance and
Anyway,
approval of the plan, I mean, it's academic, but the real acceptance and approval of the plan is to put it into your capital budget every year. I think we're setting ourselves up for disaster if we approve a 15-year plan and then we can't stick to it in our own capital budget because it's a number that the town isn't going to sustain. But
Anyway, we just never approved the plan. So if people think we don't need to approve a plan that we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on, that's fine by me. I'm just putting it on the table.
I think we ought to approve the plan, and we know, as in all things, that we change things as we go along, but it's true. We paid for this plan. We wanted a long-term plan because that's what the BET wanted, so now we have it. We should approve it and then know, as everybody knows, that it'll be changed as it goes along, but to have it hanging out there and saying, we're only taking 4 or 5 things that we prioritize, that's not acceptable.
Dr. Francis.
So I feel a little conflicted about this one because, in case anybody doesn't know, my son was one of the ones who spoke about the opportunity block. But I would like an update on the opportunity block, not just because he was talking about it. So just at some point when that seems like an opportune time. I can't remember when we said we would hear back. Yeah.
Mr. Neal.
We had also asked for a project plan for the change in theme for the middle school. We had asked how, yep.
When is that coming?
Why don't we take a look and see if we can shoehorn it in on the 17th? All right, anything else? All right, Dr. Francis, would you like to make a motion? Second? All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.